हेलो दोस्तों, स्वागत है आपका टफ स्टोरी पॉडकास्ट में। एक ऐसा शो जहां हम मिलते हैं इंस्पायरिंग एंटरप्रेन्योर्स और प्रोफेशनल से जो अपनी कहानियां, चैलेंजेस और लर्निंग्स हमारे साथ शेयर करते हैं। आज के एपिसोड में हमारे साथ है मिस्टर पृथ्वीनाथ पाला, जो को फाउंडर और सीईओ है वैलेटडेस्क के, एक नेक्स्ट जनरेशन पार्किंग टेक्नोलॉजी प्लेटफॉर्म जो हॉस्पिटैलिटी, एफ&बी और कमर्शियल स्पेसेस के वैलेट सिस्टम्स को मॉडर्नाइज कर रहा है थ्रू द यूज ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी एंड एनालिटिक्स। इससे पहले उन्होंने द लॉकर कंपनी एस्टैब्लिश किया था, जो अल्ट्रा सिक्योर सेफ डिपॉजिट सॉल्यूशंस के लिए जाना जाता है। ये एपिसोड काफी इंटरेस्टिंग होने वाला है, तो चलिए शुरू करते हैं आज का टफ स्टोरी।
People tend to, avoid change. That's human psychology. Nobody generally likes to change unless there is a very big value add with that change. The one thing I've noticed, I changed when I went there as well. I became paycheck to paycheck, which is one thing that I did not like. Wants and needs overlap quite a bit. They really don't know what they need versus what they want. Everything is a need.
Goa is losing the tourist business from last 3 years because of taxi mafia is what is in the news.
The psychology of that human being is that it's in a place that is very difficult for me to access, difficult for everybody to access as well. That was the core.
You came back to India
Yeah.
a year with Deloitte and then what happened? Why did you get locked in a locker room?
ये एपिसोड काफी इंटरेस्टिंग होने वाला है, तो चलिए शुरू करते हैं आज का टफ स्टोरी।
So welcome Prithvi to the show. How are you doing?
Good, really good. Happy to be here.
Same here.
We're happy to have you here.
Yeah.
So where did you start off from? Hyderabad?
Hyderabad, yeah. Born here, grew up here in Hyderabad. I was born here, like in the core part of the city, in Old City.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Where in
Begum Bazaar.
Okay.
Arey wah,
Begum
King
Bazaar.
Koti,
Yeah.
Begum Bazaar.
So I was born here. As far as I know, 3 generation तो यहीं पे थे. Since my great grandfather.
Okay.
Beyond that, I have no idea. But yeah, so I was born there. I think about 5-6 years of my life spent in that area. Very little memories. It's all about play. वो time पे. But after that, dad moved to the new part of the city. So my schooling, everything was here.
When you say new part, is it high tech?
No, we moved to Jubilee Hills. When
okay.
Jubilee Hills wasn't
Just forming.
So I think about 95.
Those days that was a new area.
It was just coming up. I grew up looking at high-tech city being built, basically. So it was all rock. It was dusty roads, grew up riding my bicycles on those dusty roads of Jubilee Hills and Madhapur. So basically for school, we moved here. I joined Bharati Vidya Bhavan, so we moved here for school.
Okay.
My sister was born here, so it was just easier. She got into Bhavans, I didn't. So because of her, I
sibling
the
thing?
sibling tag. So my initial days of schooling was Home Science Institute in Koti. So we moved here, and childhood was in Jubilee Hills.
What was your father working in?
He was an industrialist back then, so he was doing rubber and later moved to MS wire steel. But he started off his industry with rubber hoses. He used to deliver it to. Now it's obsolete, but Mahindra trucks and buses used to have these perishable hoses. Which
for radiator.
to deliver fluids. So now with long yielding, plastics, it's a little obsolete to use rubbers now. So he was into that business, and then when sort of it was going obsolete, the industry switched to steel wires and other things.
What was your age when that switch happened?
Early 2000s, probably 10, 11.
Okay. So did you notice the transition
To MS wires? Yes. So rubber, I really don't know a lot because
You're young.
I was too young to understand the concept of even business or whatever. It was just work. He went out to work, right? But with steel, I have a lot more understanding because I joined engineering around that period, and around 2008 2009 was getting into engineering. I joined Mallareddy at CMR Mitchell because he was close to my dad's factory as well. So I used to make
The BHEL industrial area or something?
No, this was industrial estate in Mitchell. Much further, yeah.
So did his industry also influence your choice of engineering? What area did you?
Yes, definitely it did, but I didn't pick mechanical. I veered away from it. So it impacted me,
the other way.
Yeah, the other way. So it's a tough job, right? Anything else, I understand self-employment's when I'm in the same track, but industries are a whole other ball game. It's just not easy. You're dealing with a different kind of workforce. The struggles are different.
Month over month salaries.
Yeah.
So is the factory still going on? The company?
No. So when I joined computer science, he was like, then great, there's no point doing this anymore.
Oh, you should have upgraded from MS Steel thing to TMT rods or bigger.
He did it for as long as he could. I think in 2012, 13, like he shot.
He wanted to upgrade from MS Steel to MS
Microsoft. Yeah. A different kind of MS. But at that point then I decided to go to the US, right, in 2012. Went to the US for my master's, again pursuing management in technology only. So
which university was it?
University of Texas. So
Arlington?
I was in no, Dallas. Yeah, I was in Jindal School of Management. Got my management degree, and then I worked there. I worked with Deloitte. Worked for about 2 years in Deloitte. Came back to India, transferred with the idea that यहीं पे कुछ करना है eventually. So the business mind तो है, right? It was never to.
You weren't going to stick on to a job for long.
No.
And what about your dad? Did he like that you were doing a job, or did he say that नहीं कुछ वापस आओ करो कुछ?
He'd always he was supportive in the sense that you're working great, but the bigger picture, he was always a big picture guy, right? So he's like, you have to think about what is next. You can't be sitting.
The reason I asked was because that's a business mind orientation. वैसे ही चलता है.
हाँ.
If it was a parent who was in a job, he would say, find a better job.
Yes.
Change the job.
हाँ.
If it's business person, they would always come back and say कि भाई निकल जा,
Yeah.
कभी भी आओ, खुद कुछ करो, भले छोटा करो, अपना करो.
Yeah, definitely. He's always been the kind of person like, work for yourself. There's no point reporting to somebody with all that red tape around you. Till date he doesn't believe that it's a lot of growth, because वो तो है, plateau तो होता है at some point.
Growth.
Yeah. Even linear growth, at some point it has to plateau. You either venture into a management role wherein it's business end of the day, then you have your growth pick up again. Otherwise plateau तो होता है.
Maybe
यहाँ पे तो ups and downs.
नहीं.
Ups and downs.
भाई, you need to probably keep out the FANG companies out of the thought process. Then you think about his point कि हाँ ये फिर linear ही है job.
सबका linear ही है. Slope थोड़ा इधर उधर होता है.
नहीं, FANG में क्या होता है? At least you see that jobs suddenly going up after every 5 years or something, and you might think jobs are also not bad either. But non-FANG companies, it's really.
Yeah, I guess it's just about what example you're picking and using it.
Majority, right? Definitely there's companies that do really well and growth opportunities बहुत रहते हैं, but then general population. I mean, sure. I take my example. Even if working with Deloitte, right? At a certain point, it does plateau unless you're doing something great for the company, where you're switching to a more managerial, not managerial, but executive level roles, where you're focused on company growth, and they try to give you your own account or
How many years did you work in Deloitte?
In Deloitte, in consulting overall, I worked 6 years, about five and a half years, but Deloitte specifically 2.5 years.
So what were the challenges you saw, or what were the interesting things you saw?
So this was tech, right? I mean, I was never a tech guy. I consulted tech, wherein I helped build products, solve problems around use cases with products, right? Software products. The challenges are usability, the way I always saw it. My focus has always been to make that product as usable and easy to use as possible. Right? It has to be user friendly. If it is not user friendly, you might really push it, and you can force them to use it for a
you have to
few months.
incentivize, you have to
there's a lot of
do
other
a lot more
if
it's not intuitive.
But if it is intuitive and easy to use, they get accustomed to it, and they don't people tend to avoid change. That's human psychology. Nobody generally likes to change unless there is a very big value add with that change. So that, so for something simple like using a phone even, right? Think about how difficult it is for somebody to switch from Android to iOS or iOS to Android.
We saw the whole change when 2 decades back, when computers were coming in India and everyone were forced to use a computer.
Correct.
And right now everyone is worried about AI.
Yeah.
AI is not going to bite them, but
Exactly.
they are fearing that something is going to happen which they don't know what will happen.
It might be the best thing that happens to us, but
eventually,
you'll mold it into something that works for you. That's how change works. But it's very gradual. It takes a lot of time. So bringing a product into someone's life, with tech especially, is I strongly believe is the user experience. So that core belief basically was built with how I went with my generally in life. I started using a Mac very early in my life, and then I started to understand how certain things were built. So big fan of Steve Jobs.
So you're an Apple fanboy.
Yeah. Not just Apple. They do something wrong, I'll call it out. But the approach that early Mac or general Apple products had in terms of the intuitive usage, and how they are built, right? That really caught my attention very early in my life, and I was very curious about it. So even with the kind of position within Deloitte, the kind of projects or teams I've picked, they were more focused. I was more of a front-end guy. So for one of the projects that I was doing with Deloitte, we were building, so there's something called food stamps in the US. Food stamps is basically it's like a ration card, right?
Okay.
They have like a self-serve portal where people sign up for these by themselves. It's a big web application. You want to break it down into tech, it's very complicated, where a lot of rule engines run, all of that running in the background. But then, somebody who would really need this benefit is not somebody who's used a computer even or has a basic phone. So we've built the system to be capable of running on basic kiosks that are put in Walmarts, for instance. So they can come in, spend 10 minutes, put in their details saying that, hey, like I just went broke last month and I need to be put on this relief plan. So now that system needs to be very easy for him to understand, be it the kind of icons and buttons you use to get their attention, and these are complex things that they need to fill in.
But wouldn't they need something like Aadhaar alternative in the US?
They always have their SSN.
SSN number. So I never knew there's something like a ration card in US. So what is it called as?
They're called food stamps.
Food stamps.
Yeah.
And I saw recently a clip in from Canada which was viral, where an Indian girl was picking up food supplies, which was for, I don't know the whole story, something. It was for donation for people who went, she was well-to-do.
Right.
She goes and picks up food from there and shows it on social media and got viral.
Right.
So is it something similar?
You mean from Goodwill or something?
Yeah, those are Goodwill and those are private things.
So this is from the government initiative?
No, this is public. This is government relief.
Okay.
So ration is basically, ration card and the whole ecosystem here is subsidized goods. In the US, it's just monetary benefit that is given out in prepaid cards. So they issue like a debit card sort of thing, and as long as you're on that program, they keep loading it with a certain amount depending on what your sustenance is going to be. Let's say you're an individual, right? You're male, you're like 25 years old, you're capable of working, but some reason you've lost it. Right, so you're eligible for a certain kind. So the system determines that, okay, you're eligible to get, let's say, $400 a month. But if you are looking for active employment, then there's certain recommended training programs, technical courses, things like that, and you enroll in one of them. Now for an additional 6 months you're eligible to get $600 or $700 more than what you were previously eligible.
So
and
essentially there's a safety net that the government has in place.
So they'll give it to you for a period of maybe 4 to 6 months. In case of disability, longer. In case of disaster struck, let's say you were in a hurricane, you lost everything, you are not even able to commute to work, and they've fired you, whatever reason, right? There's different tenures and.
So what safety net did you have here when you were trying to do
my startup stuff? Oh, my family is the biggest safety net, I think. Hands down. My family being here, supportive with everything. It was. I couldn't ask for a bigger safety net, right?
But I was just thinking about the food stamp thing. It's still stuck in my mind. I think Kejriwal just announced something similar. 2,100 rupees for every lady in Delhi. He's giving it to them.
There's
हमारे यहाँ vote bank politics होता है.
This is all vote bank politics also,
right?
Same thing. So there's within food stamps there's 2 different programs. One is a national federal program,
okay,
and then there's a state level program as well. Certain budgets, and so let's say $400, $300 comes from the state, and $100 or something comes from the Federal Reserve.
So was this for California state or
state of Louisiana?
And the whole thing connects back to your job at Deloitte, which is through you were managing this whole thing.
Correct.
You're saying.
Correct. So
the software application part.
The entire thing was built by Deloitte.
Okay.
So I was responsible for the design and the entire go
part
live.
of the team basically.
Yeah. The entire go live for the front end portal.
Okay.
What they call, it's called a cafe portal basically.
So from there you shifted the same Deloitte job to India.
I was working on the same thing, just relocated back here. So I was working. Huh?
Why did you relocate?
Missed biryani or something else?
No, I was in Dallas. यार बिरयानी तो बहुत सही मिलता है वहाँ पे.
Is it?
Dallas is basically Hyderabad.
No, why am I
not even India, Hyderabad.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Why I'm asking is many people like recently one of my nephew went to US and she was complaining that there's not much of food options in US. I want to clarify that कि when you say Dallas is like Hyderabad.
Food options तो है, बहुत है. Vegetarian I agree, but again if you're looking at Indian cuisine, right? Indian cuisine you cannot go wrong with vegetarian food. Like you go anywhere in the world, find
Bhavans are at least there everywhere.
They're there. We have our presence everywhere. I don't think anybody can say they miss Indian food. They might miss home food. That's something I'll get along.
But aren't those sellers at least selling home food only? Most of them really.
उनके घर का खाना है ना.
So do you have any connections back in US who is into real estate, who is doing good like
not
Hyderabad real estate level?
No. Me personally, I don't know anybody who's doing real estate. I know people who are property owners. I know people who invested in property to generate some passive income, rental incomes and things like that. But not real estate because it's more of buy and sell.
A lot of Telugu people are shifting to US and कुछ ही दिनों में तो मैं उनका सुन रहा हूँ नया शहर बनने वाला है.
Oh, for sure.
Real estate industry has moved from here to there, but Texas especially.
No, the home market, I think the homeowners market is like growing because of Indians and there's Chinese as well.
Huh.
These are the two
both are competing
driving forces for the US home market.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's something that I've seen.
I think in both cultures it's ingrained that you have to buy a house as soon as you can. It's a symbolic.
Both have realized that there's growth only in that area.
Yeah, though we are always at loggerheads, the ideologies are very similar. Probably why we are.
See, the Americans believe that एंगेजमेंट के लिए प्रपोजल के लिए बड़ा डायमंड खरीदो. इंडियंस लोग बकवास है, उससे कुछ नहीं हो, सोना खरीदो. वैल्यू इसमें बढ़ने वाली है.
So you silver and gold. सोना चांदी में इन्वेस्ट करो.
The diamond might be carbon. I mean that would be a fake diamond also. You don't know. You just
no. With the lab growns, it's a thing, right? Now very close. Barely you can make out unless somebody tells you it's
half
a lab
the
grown.
price.
Half? I think it's a tenth.
No, it's 1/10.
Oh, is it?
It's 1/10. I went to Surat recently. My relatives are
even cheaper now. They're making it like chappal है.
रोज बन रहा है वो. In fact it's killing their own market technically.
But they can't stop progress. if they try to stop it, it'll come from somewhere else.
If they stop it, someone else would manufacture
Someone
it.
the other will
Yeah,
do it.
yeah.
So you can't stop it.
So back from US to India, Deloitte, is it a downgrade or an upgrade?
Within Deloitte? No.
The switch back from US to India.
Hey, for me, it's a
It's
switch.
taking time, so
yeah,
you're
it's a
thinking-
switch in
Switch in mentality and
I wouldn't say it's an upgrade or a downgrade, but it's very different. So
were you like always in complaining mode in the initial days? अरे US में अच्छा चलता था यहाँ पे ऐसा क्यों?
for me, it was never like that. Everybody asked me this question. I moved back in 2018. The first 6 months, everybody was asking me, so how do you feel? I'm like, not very different. I've lived here for 20 years of my life, and then I moved to the US. Nobody questioned me how I felt when I was there.
It was presumed it would be good.
Yeah. I come back and everybody is asking me, but I never.
Typically complain about हाँ pollution ज़्यादा है, traffic ज़्यादा है, horn ज़्यादा मारते हैं.
एक ये भी रीजन है, जो लोग जाते हैं कभी उधर का नेगेटिव नहीं बोलते हैं, इवन दो कितना भी सफर कर रहे हैं, कितना भी तकलीफ है, अच्छा दिखाते हैं,
rosily painted,
they
right?
try to sell it back to the people back in India, and here people who couldn't go feel bad and they want to just put that anger on them. Whoever comes back, आ गया मजा, कैसा था, बेकार था ना, मुझे मालूम है, and other person will be like, नहीं अच्छा ही था तो क्यों आया वापस?
Yeah, exactly.
अगर अच्छा था तो वापस क्यों आया? So it's here there's a lot of, not a jealousy could be the right word, but there's a lot of anger here कि we couldn't go. Who went there, when they go through the struggle, they say like, अब क्या घर पे थोड़े ना वापस बोलेंगे कि इतनी तकलीफ है यार, आ गए हैं, करना पड़ता है.
But the current status now, I think brides, there's not very high preference to people working in tech jobs in the US. Because a lot of layoffs and a lot of flux, right?
Not
so
tech, right?
It's very hard to get married.
Yeah, that's
while being in the US.
I know.
So probably another reason he came back.
वापस आते ही मेरा शादी हो गया.
कुंडली वही अटकी थी. सब कुछ जा रहा था, सब बढ़िया, लड़का यहाँ नहीं है, बुलाओ वापस. So in our Gujaratis we don't even go out of the states, very less, like very few people go out of Hyderabad to Gujarat or Delhi और तो शादी होते हैं. इंडिया से बाहर का तो सोचते ही नहीं है. Last few years the trend changed and people were like actively like, अच्छा आपका लड़का US में है तो हम भेजेंगे, and then now it has again stopped कि नहीं हम हमारी बेटी को पेट्रोल पंप में काम करने नहीं देंगे, सुपरमार्केट में काम नहीं करने देंगे.
It's become visible. It's very open now.
Early it was hidden.
It was hidden because वहाँ पे there was no connectivity. कहाँ WhatsApp था, कहाँ
फोन
वीडियो
पे
कॉल
बात
थे,
होती थी.
हाँ वो ट्रंक कॉल था, you call once in a
GPO
week,
जाओ कॉल करो.
तो nobody knew वहाँ पे क्या चल रहा है. अरे डॉलर भेज रहा है, wonderful.
They were struggling. They were sending back the money.
It was all like secretive. It all seemed like it was all great. Now it's all out in the
Instant
open.
video call. क्या चल रहा है, ब्रेकफास्ट क्या खा रहे हैं, कुछ नहीं, यहाँ पे क्या बोलते हैं,
सीरियल
खा रहे हैं,
ब्रेड खा रहा हूँ दूध पे.
तो what is going on in life, boring life, with दामाजी वो तो काम पे है, तुम मैं अभी जाऊंगी, मिलते हो तुम दोनों एक दूसरे से नहीं मिलते हैं, टाइम ही नहीं है, तो क्या कर रहे हो उधर, वापस आ जाओ, अपना घर तो है यहाँ.
It's a different, the ideology is different, the way of philosophy of life is very different, and the one thing I've noticed, I changed when I went there as well. I became paycheck to paycheck. My lifestyle became paycheck to paycheck, which is one thing that I did not like.
So what is paycheck to paycheck?
You get your pay on the first, you live that paycheck until the next first, and it resets, your bank account resets.
So basically paycheck to paycheck उड़ाओ पैसे.
तो उसमें बचा लो ना, अगर बचाना है तो. Why do most people live that
That's
way?
the philosophy that is generally there.
I mean, I understand that concept, I know it, but I'm just trying to understand it because मैंने काफ़ी लोगों को देखा है, जितना भी कमाते हैं, अगर $2,000 कमा रहे हैं तो भाई हर दिन $15 की स्टारबक्स कॉफ़ी पीने की क्या ज़रूरत है? मेरे को वो समझ नहीं आता. Why do you want to live that lifestyle?
In your lifestyle.
Yeah.
Why do you want to do that?
It just creeps in. You don't notice.
I don't know.
At least that's been my experience.
A simplistic way, maybe to fit in with everybody. I don't know.
I mean, others might judge them, saying like, "Hey, why do you want to skip that?"
I don't think I was ever worried about somebody judging me, but it was always about, you drive around with somebody, you carpooling to work. Everybody stops at a Starbucks first 2 or 3 times. चल यार घर पे कॉफी बना के आ जाता हूँ. But then you start buying coffee eventually, and then step by step it
and
comes
then long weekends,
it's normalized.
you go travel, so you will spend money that you wouldn't normally spend.
You wouldn't even realize it, but in 6 months, a year, you're suddenly like in that mindset.
The reason why I asked this was now India is becoming the next West to some extent. A lot of Indians are moving towards that zone.
Yeah.
लोग 1 लाख की सैलरी है, 2 लाख की सैलरी है, कमा रहे हैं, मंथ एंड में उड़ा देते हैं.
You know the iPhone stats, right? Majority of it is taken on EMI.
Yeah.
In India.
It is.
So yesterday night while we were discussing with our Apple friend, he was saying India is growing 150% every year for them, though the numbers are not officially shown that way.
Okay.
Internally they know that India is a huge market for them.
Oh, it is.
Because Indians are buying their phones like crazy. It's not just status symbol now, so everyone wants to just buy it. It's just an iPhone, like,
Yeah.
and it's no more like a big status symbol. Ab sabke paas, it's a normalized thing.
It's
A
normalized.
Mac, a headphone,
Some
everything.
point wants become needs. You don't realize when I need it. Not like good to have.
It at a certain consumer segment, right, with the age demographic now, wants and needs overlap quite a bit. They really don't know what they need versus what they want. Everything is a need because the justification to aisa hai. They tend to justify if you want something badly, the justification turns out to be a need.
You can rationalize anything.
Yeah. Need ke liye justification is very easy.
So you didn't need the US thing. You wanted
Exactly.
to come back to India for wedding is what now understood.
It's not it's correlation but not causality.
What was the biggest trigger?
For me to come back, no. So I ran out of my visa. So I didn't file for H1 or anything. Okay. So I ran out of my visa, and then 2018 I came back.
Okay. So
Deloitte wanted me to stay for another year, so they filed my L1, which didn't come through. I was like, might as well. I'll just come back to India. So you get 3 years to do your H1, and also I never filed my H1. The idea was to come back at the end of it.
So you were in OPT and then OPT, and then after it finished.
Correct.
So there were like 3 years of OPT, or
36 months of OPT, 1 year of CPT. So that's 4 years there, and then continued my consulting here in the Deloitte for another year.
In my time we had only 1 year OPT, 12 months.
That changed with our batch, if I'm not wrong, and then disappeared the moment Trump came.
So that's something which was something you were telling the other day, right? Yeah, someone else कि US बच्चों को बोल रहे हैं वापस फटाफट भाग जाओ before Trump comes, because Trump might come in effect and
it's a note. Yeah, that's very true.
So even though this podcast might go after 3-4 months, we have already shot up some content. So we are right now shooting this in December, and Trump is swearing in Jan.
20th.
So everyone is talking around in our circle, morning walks, that कि सबको बोल रहे हैं वापस भागो.
Official mails that were sent out from universities, from company HRs, asking people to travel back before, and if any visa stampings, whatever you have, get it done, because once February comes in, so first 10 days is usually the most
Time to show the what here can do.
So they tend to sign a lot of they have something called executive orders. So the president can sign an executive order, bring anything into law,
even if it's not it does not need a constitutional amendment.
You don't have to present it to the Senate or anything. You can just sign an executive order, which can be refuted later, but the moment it is signed, it's in effect until it's refuted again. So wo period mein jo bhi hai, they are stuck.
So I think birth rate is probably the biggest issue.
I think that will be the first one. Birth rate citizenship. He might sign that into effect the moment he comes in. Again,
a lot of new changes expected.
Yeah. A lot of things.
Even Canada is reviewing their immigration policy, and
but they're the only 2 countries, right, that do it right now.
You mean revisiting their policies?
No, birthright citizenship.
No,
I don't think anybody
Canada is not revisiting it, but I think students who came for studies, they're asking them to submit documents, stuff like that.
Why does Canada even need to do all this? Not people die to go there.
Their elections are also coming up.
Anyway, he's going away. Justin is going away. Is what is the news everywhere.
Seems like it.
No, but I think any policy taken too far tends to have some effect, and there's a need to have some corrective measure.
I don't know if it's just politics. Generally in life, there's like a change in trend that sort of reverses the psychology and the mindset of not just the voter but the general population. So let's circle back to your thing. You came back to India, a year with Deloitte,
And then what happened? Why did you get locked in a locker room? And
so there was a window before COVID where
or did you because I could connect through your social media profile, and I'm just connecting back because before that you got married, so you got so much gold that you had to set up your own locker room. What was the reason behind that?
So the way that turned out, so no, the reason I quit Deloitte was to so we did like another startup, which was a ride sharing startup. So we just sort of veered away from it before COVID because ride sharing went for a toss. So we were figuring out
when you say ride sharing, it's like the cab business, but
you know, BlaBlaCar.
BlaBlaCar, I have heard about it.
So so aggregating business was basically what Uber and Ola was doing.
Just carpooling.
Carpooling is what we were doing. So that was something that wasn't available in India at that stage. So
what was the idea?
Intercity carpool. So there's a lot of intercity travel that happens in that 4-hour work range. So Mumbai Pune is one. You know, around Delhi NCR, there's a lot of a 2-hour, 3-hour drive range. For Hyderabad, there is Vijayawada, for example. So there's pockets trying to, there's a lot of commute between
People
tier 2 and
commute.
tier 1 within that 3-hour to 4-hour drive range. So we wanted to bring in carpool around that. There was nothing connecting these apart from proper intercity, cab hailing like Uber intercity.
What were the
Ola.
challenges specific to India that you dug up and then you came across?
Specific to this one is grouping these people. So let's say there's 10 people traveling from Hyderabad to Vijayawada, and everybody's driving, but there's 40 or 50 people who don't have a ride but are looking to travel. Their main thing is going to be bus, get a cab themselves. Trains, hardest thing nowadays with the RACs and everything.
So you're saying demand exceeded supply?
Yes. So that's the market opportunity we were looking at.
But isn't it risky as such? I'll ask you why. Because pre-COVID times, one of my employees used to come from Medchal to Kokapet,
Right.
Medchal side, and he used to come on a daily. Pawan is his name. Pawan used to come daily from that side to this side in a something BlaBlaCar or those kind of apps. और मुझे रोज़ वही सवाल था, अरे रैंडम लोग सब कैसे आ रहा है, कोई स्मोक कर रहा है, कोई पी के बैठा हुआ है, इज इट सेफ, लेट नाइट जा रहा है, कहीं उठा के तेरे को चले गए तो तेरे घर वाले को किडनैप, ऑल रैंडम थॉट्स कम टू माय माइंड.
We had standing instructions, don't give rides to strangers.
So me, I'm talking about Pawan. Now there could be Pawani also.
Right. Definitely.
And तब तो मैं तो सोचूंगा भाई तू जा ही मत, बहन तू मत जा. So how can you run a company like that? Don't you have that thought process कि भाई क्या हो सकता है?
There is a very clear list of challenges that can be listed down, specifically around security and safety, be it women's safety or just people's safety in general, right? These can be handled with safety nets within technology, active location sharing, right? Tracking of that vehicle, because vehicle and vehicle owner need to be registered, so you can collect that data.
All of these are kind of moderate deterrents.
They're not.
It's still grey line.
They're not. Yeah, they're not active.
Preventive. They're after the fact.
They're not active deterrents. They're not entirely preventive in nature.
I still don't trust Uber. I mean, that's the best option in the market right now. Uber or Ola, whatever. Airport से जब भी मैं आता हूँ, I still end up saying that boss जो ground floor में third party vendors है, Sri Srinivasa cars है, some random names होते हैं. I still believe them because they at least they come in a white good clothes, and I feel that they are on a payroll, salary payroll. यहाँ पे Uber वाला बंदा तो on the way क्या off कर देगा.
Right.
तो फिर I'm nowhere. I'm again stuck. There's no contact option to reach them. And think about me when I'm going with a family. If I have this fear, what if a single lady is going?
Right,
Definitely. Unless India has this guideline that you have to have cameras in every car, it's all live streamed to them. We are in a 5G world.
Aggregators, I think there are some regulations where there needs to be a button. At least.
Sir, वो button है, वो काम नहीं करता है.
So we were one of the ones. So yeah, in our business plan, we were introducing dashcam. So we tied up with a dashcam company that goes in the welcome kit when you sign up. So that dashcam had a 4G SIM in it. It does a live this thing.
It makes sense because today in the world, we are talking always about 5G. I have spoken, I have worked with Jio, Airtel for so long. I know they keep talking about unlimited data. Bhai, keep the data in the car for 2 days till the customer completes, says I'm 5-star, okay with this trip. Delete the data, overwrite it.
On the car?
On the car itself. But at
Okay.
least keep the copy and so
Yeah,
that
yeah,
everyone
yeah.
is safe.
Which I'm sure Uber and Ola do.
No, we never have a car dash cams in Ubers and
Oh, you
Olas in
mean
India.
within the dash cam?
Within, हाँ, I'm saying inside dash cam, not the
Okay,
outside.
okay. Yeah.
वो बाहर उड़ाएगा वो अलग स्टोरी है. अंदर की भी तो इम्पोर्टेंट स्टोरी है कि देन वी नो द ड्राइवर इज नॉट डोजिंग ऑफ. मुझे आधा टेंशन तो ये होता है आधे टाइम पे ये नींद में है एंड आई एम नॉट लुकिंग एट द रोड, आई एम लुकिंग इन हिज आईज ओनली थ्रू द मिरर. सोया उठा आई कॉल माय सन, उठा चिराग डू यू वांट चिप्स, जस्ट टू मेक नॉट हिम, उसको गुस्सा नहीं दिलाना है बट जस्ट टू मेक हिम एक्टिव कि बॉस प्लीज तू मत सो जाना, हमें घर पहुंचना है.
Well, definitely there
are a lot of challenges and
this is just one small piece of it. So what we did before we didn't launch, so when we were building the product itself, within the team, so we had a team of like 11 or 12 people. Our daily, we had like 1.5 hour on the calendar every day, brainstorm challenges, right? That page, like we worked on it for about 9 months and then COVID came, right? So mid of 2019 is when I quit with Deloitte, and then we started working on it a little earlier, but like a few months into this project I quit Deloitte. But those 9 to 10 months that we were working, that list of challenges, that page grew to like some 30 pages. That sheet grew to 30 pages long, and it's all challenges. Half of them I don't think Uber or Ola are solving even now, because
they aren't.
To the most part, there is no robust solution. You can apply patch fixes or like, as you said, like, they're not deterrents, but you can provide some passive way to, track it or, trace it back to a mistake or an issue of somebody.
Was the biggest problem trust in the system?
Yes, that's the biggest. So around trust. The other thing is, since this is, ride sharing, will that person even show up? It starts there. Because so let's say you've signed up for 5 days a week, and I can't give you the same guy going in that direction every single day. It's not possible. Maybe he's not going to come a certain day, so I need to give somebody else. Now how do I ensure that customer that no matter what your ride is, so you don't have to worry about it. For मुझे Monday को office जाना है, is somebody gonna pick me up or not?
And as you start trying to figure out what it needs to inject trust, it becomes a cab aggregator.
Yeah. So that was the biggest problem. Trust, sort of, overarching security, all of these concerns. So it's how do you win this customer's trust?
So the whole theory project never became practically live.
And COVID happened for a good 1.5-2 years. Ride sharing was like.
Is anyone in the market making it successful?
No.
Okay.
There are players are there, but they are not successful. Could be another thing.
No, it's all cab aggregators now.
Yeah.
So ride sharing in itself didn't work out. Karnataka government made like benchmark thing where like you cannot do ride sharing unless it's a commercial plate. You cannot be benefiting off of a individual.
Technically, what's wrong in that?
Taxes.
Taxes. Someone else is making off money and we are not getting a big pie out of it.
Yeah.
That is one. Plus, if there are any incidents, then the government has to answer how is that enabled. If you are building a platform or solution.
Uber, Lyft and Uber, right, in the US doesn't work in New York City. Because they have the same mechanism as India, where taxi cabs, yellow plates, are medallions that are auctioned. They go for an auction for almost $1 million.
Okay, there's a very big union there.
They're not going to let any of these guys come in. It's going to be very difficult. So
it's like Goa's taxi mafia.
Exactly. There's no way.
It's a big thing. It's a
Goa is losing. No player there.
Goa is losing the tourist business from last 3 years because of taxi mafia is what is in the news, and people are accepted or not. That's the reality. You get down from in Goa, you can't book a Uber, you can't book anything. You just go to any hotel, you spend 2,000-3,000 rupees, which is a good amount of money because the night stay would be like 10K. आधा पैसा क्यों कैब पे one way दोगे? 2 way you end up with 5,000. Not everyone is ready to do that.
So I had a recent experience, and for some reason, so I went to Bali in October, right? The commute was so cheap. I had a 7-seater for 4,000 rupees for 10 hours.
Yeah.
And in 2 months after that, we went to Chikmagalur. From Shimoga to Chikmagalur, I was trying to hire, and it was 4,000 for one way. It's like, why is this way? Something is wrong here.
You are in a rich country.
Yeah. No,
And I realized, we have expensive commute. I mean,
we're not tourism driven. Things like easy commute and transportation comes with tourism. It's like a baseline for tourism. You cannot build tourism without all of these, right? So we were sort of banking on the entire tourism aspect going on, that people would want to visit. So buses not able to cater to the demand, trains not able to cater to the demand. Who's benefiting?
The private cabs.
And they are looting left and right. You want to go to the smallest segment, right? Vijayawada, Hyderabad to Vijayawada is about 250-300 kilometers. It will cost you about 7,000 or 8,000 rupees to go there in a cab.
I'll give you a better example. From Gachibowli to Ramoji Film City, which is what is a tourism thing.
Yeah.
Cabs charge 3,000 rupees one way.
Because they'll have to recoup for the reverse also.
But that's not our problem, right? Think from my point of view as a customer. They charge 3,000, 3,500 one way, or they say 5,000 up and down, I'll stay for the whole day. Rather, you can just do a Zoom car and keep the car with yourself for the whole day.
and probably all of these numbers was probably what prompted you to think about ride sharing.
Yes. Yeah. So
I mean, figuring out jahan paisa hai, wahan jump karo.
yeah. But end of the day, drive though, if you run it as an aggregator business where you're bringing in somebody who's trying to make money and at the same time not work as much. Right.
So tell me one thing, Prithvi. So because our podcast name is TUFFStory, we talk about the tough part of the lives also at the same time. So you mentioned about 10 to 11 people. So they were freelancers or actual employees whom you spent money for the aggregator part and lost?
No. So yeah, they had some stake. They started the journey with us. About 4 of them were developers. They all had their jobs. I had my job at Deloitte. I had my friend who was working as.
It's like a weekend project then.
We were sitting in an office every day.
Okay.
So we were all working remote from that office for our jobs and then working through this.
This was during COVID time?
No, just before.
Pre-COVID.
Just before. So we got to it was like a project. It wasn't a company yet. We didn't formulate a company. None of the compliances were done, right? It was just
So you were yet in the stage of reaching out for funding, reaching out to VCs or others for funding?
Didn't even start. We were building the business model.
You were still trying to figure that part out.
Business model wasn't there. So we were trying to build a business model. I've seen something like ride sharing work successfully in Europe and in some states of US where it was just coming out. And I thought India would be the perfect market.
There's enough density.
Density, but available. The main thing why ride sharing doesn't really work or is not as profitable in the US or Europe is car rentals are very cheap. You're able to rent a car with very little liability because of short-term automotive insurances. They're not very expensive. You can insure your rental car for like $5 to $6 a day. Basic third-party liability. Comprehensive might cost you about $10-12, and the car itself you'll get it for about a very good full-size sedan. You'd probably get it for like $50-60 a day. Unlimited mileage, no restriction, drive as much as you keep the car. Now, competing with that market is going to be very difficult.
True.
So, and everybody out there has a car. Car is like a phone,
basic thing,
right? It not necessarily a car, but some form of two-wheeler, four-wheeler, some automotive. And where it doesn't exist, they had their public sector sorted, right? New York has public transport, one of the best in the world. That's where people don't really buy cars. Mode of transportation is sorted. That is not there.
They do have parking problems, which is why also they go for
exactly. So
in developed nations, you travel in public transport.
So the challenges were different. So they weren't really focused on solving anything there because they don't see it as a challenge. But in India, public transport's non-existent, and if it does, it's very bad.
Yeah.
Right. So there was a market space for sure. That's a segment of it was catered to by, you know, Ola and Uber and, you know, the hundreds of Rapidos and like what at some point at that point there were like 1,000 aggregator businesses, tech, you know, in the tech field, and we were looking at the specific problem that was core of all of this. So that's what we were looking to solve.
When did the actual core issue dawn on the team that, oh, this is why this will not work?
Why it will not work was in January. So we had a rough, like I wouldn't call it an MVP, but we got to a stage where the product was fairly nascent, a little bit of fine tweaking, and we'd get like a minimum viable product out of it. For Sankranti, we wanted to do the busiest route because Hyderabad, Vijayawada, that is the
people go to hometowns. Yeah.
And people don't go because they weren't able to get a ride.
Yes.
A lot of people stay back.
And trains are like fully crowded.
So I know friends and like, you know, people in generally my circle who used to tell me that like, yeah, this year I couldn't go back to my hometown because there is no transport available. All buses are full. You know, they amp up supply of buses considering they increase 60% runtime of trains. During those 4 or 5 days of Sankranti. Yeah. So with all of that, people are not able to go. So we were like, this is the perfect time to test out this model. And when we put that out, the list of challenges, we wanted to tick some of those things off, saying, okay, the core challenges, let's pick out 20. Let's see at least these core challenges are being resolved. And we've done some test runs going to, you know, that 7, which is set up in the Midway Point, right?
On the way.
7 Plaza. Yeah. So we went there, we printed out some flyers, we you know, went out there, started giving out to people and saying, I mean, you normally spend 1,000 rupees or something on a ticket to Vijayawada. What if for maybe 1,000 or 1,100 rupees, 100 rupees more, we'll give you a confirmed seat in a car that you carpool. These are all corporates or like, you know, people working tech jobs going back home to their village or hometown. And 6 or 7, you know, one problem, we check it. There's 3 other problems that, you know, that come out of it. Yeah. And we started with about 20 core problems, right, that we wanted to solve. We went like pre-New Year's, went to 7. We wanted to see if we are able to cater to these. That core 20 problems expanded to about 40 or 50. We got new ones saying, no, but this is a challenge. Now, not everybody goes to Vijayawada. There is 10 or 15 villages that people stay in. Nobody really stays in Vijayawada. Someone wants to go to Guntur. Somebody wants to go to Tadepalligudam. Somebody wants to go to
all the small shops.
That's where the family is. And they're like, okay, great. Bus gets me to Vijayawada anyways. Yeah. From there, I have to take another local bus and go somewhere. Are you solving that problem? Are you going to drop me off at my doorstep? Because you're picking me up at my doorstep here. And then we thought, okay, let's try to cluster all of these people. I'm sure some people go to Guntur. At least if you're able to solve this in volume, we'll run the startup model and say, okay, this works in volumes. Let's try to get there. Then the problem is going to be, how do you advertise it and how do you market it to people and make it attractive enough that everybody wants to use it. Then your user experience, you can do a whole bunch of things. You can throw some money, offer discount incentives to use it. But clustering itself is becoming a problem.
Predictability is a problem.
Right.
Because there's no habit.
Exactly.
It's not
finding people driving to Guntur and willing to drop people off in Guntur.
And at the last moment, if he cancels,
and then
4 new headaches, all these people will be waiting.
How do we deal with that? I can get them to Vijayawada, but not beyond. Because I can find 50 people, they're passing through Vijayawada, but not beyond. They might go somewhere else. How do I cluster these people? Then we did a reset. No, first let's go back to the drawing board, understand how the clustering needs to work. Then sat down with my friend who works with neural networks and, you know, all these decision trees. We started thinking of ways how we can really cluster these people based on their profiles itself. You know, they'll set up their home location and all of that, their general trends, where they're going, see if we can identify something. And then those trends didn't start to fit into, you know, identifiable patterns. So then it
So Valetdesk is a much simpler take on this.
far simpler. Problems
More
are straightforward.
profitable, simpler, predictable.
Problems are straightforward.
So before we go there, you didn't lose money, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Then
Time.
you got married.
I would say I lost money in terms of time, definitely.
But then, what made you start off with the locker room then? Because I was impressed with the amount of actual hardcore money invested in that, in the whole setup in the middle of Jubilee Hills, unless you say it's your own home and you did that.
So it is. That's where it came in.
Because it felt like a bank's vault, which I was looking at it.
Yeah. So the idea behind that, so it wasn't directly started by me. So I sort of inherited that idea and took over the operations and started running it with a small spin of my vision to it. The core idea started, 3 or 4 years before, when the business idea itself was put together. And this was running in the background. My focus wasn't really on it. So my dad was more invested into it. So they were looking at solving a core, market problem, which is storage of valuables. At that stage, banks, retrospect now, I understand that that wasn't the case, but now I won't, let me present it
out of it so you can say the
exactly.
other part.
So the way I saw it at that stage was that banks, 2015 to 2020 window, right? Whenever you go to a bank, say I want a locker, right? The idea of somebody wanting a locker or safe deposit box is that there are certain valuables that is beyond
They can't safe keep it.
Correct. Yeah. Psychologically, right? It might be safer in your own home, but you feel threatened if it is at home, right? You constantly have a worry that, hey, it's at home. It's at home. Like, because you know that it's in a certain place that is so accessible to you, you're worried that it might be accessible to somebody else. Now, with a bank, when the psychology of that human being is that it's in a place that is very difficult for me to access, difficult for everybody to access as well. That was the core thought process of somebody who wanted to. It can be wedding jewelry, it can be like your ancestral property documents, it can be a hard drive, crypto drives, these are all things. Different people have different ideas of what is valuable to them. Now you keep it safe in a certain place that is hard for you to access, you tend to think that it is hard for anybody else to access. That's the thought process. Banks had that going for them, but banks never thought or saw this as a market of its own. Banks always have because banks are banks. They want to print money. They are not trying to sell a concept. They are not trying to sell, a product as, as its own thing.
They're getting smarter now.
They are. That's what changed over the last few years. So at that stage, until then, banks' mindset was that safe deposit box is a means to bring or lure a customer. That's bait. They never wanted to make money out of it. Still, I still do believe that they are not.
It was more as an add-on, so that they would take loans.
It's an ancillary thing.
They
can sell once they identify the kind of. It's a demographic thing as well. The kind of safe deposit box you fit into one of their 10 buckets.
I don't know why, because I could never connect to this locker thing. Both Axis Bank and ICICI Bank both offer me lifetime locker rooms in all of their branches. They keep saying, please sir, आप हमारे पास आ जाइए, free है, lifetime free, I'll give you a document. But I never understood.
It's how many times? So this.
तुम्हारा पूरा पैसा market में होगा.
And I never understood the logic.
It's how many times you access it. How many units you have. The size of that unit.
No, on the contrary, my neighbors keep asking me कि I want to open a locker room. They are not offering it to me. I'm like, hell, वो ऐसे ही देते हैं यार. वो क्यों आपके पीछे? I don't know.
It's not the case. So when you have a certain rapport with your bank, right, in terms of number of products
or relationship,
relationship is products for them. How many products they're able to sell you?
Yeah,
it can be insurance, it can be money management, right, wealth management products. It can be your savings accounts, current accounts. How many products?
Basically, locker is not a product. Is what you're saying.
It's not. It's a bait. Nothing more for that. So they try to. They either bring you in with lure of a locker, or they don't let you leave with.
Just sticky proposition.
Yeah. Once you have your locker there, he's not going to let you leave. He's going to hold 10 things leverage.
It's something like the pension accounts you open or your SSY accounts or the government scheme accounts, so that you can't come out of the scheme for 20 years.
Now,
you use the same account continuously.
Exactly. Now, how do they do that for HNIs? Lockers.
So HNIs don't stay here also much.
Correct.
So they need to keep it somewhere. So it's for those people who have something to hide. अपने पास कुछ है ही नहीं. So it's okay. I understand.
So that was, but my thing was not to focus on the products that I can sell, but focus on safety itself. You see, because the reason you're not storing it at your home is because you don't feel it safe enough, right? And if you're putting it in a bank and the main promise is not safety, then what's the point of really storing it there? That's what really brought me on board with that idea, saying that yes. So met with some of the people who are in the business, right? People who companies like Gazebo, there's ChubSafe, there's Godrej. So they're the ones who are specialists of
the lock safety,
keys, locks, the whole entourage of like security systems. They make all of these biometric systems and all of that. And I spoke to them, tried to understand what their ideologies were and why. So this happened right after COVID. Lockdowns lifted and COVID mein I was completely free. So I started looking into this, reading through what this market space is. And at that point, I realized that all over the world, the first thing that I noticed, safe deposit lockers are never run by banks. Anywhere in the world.
They're outsourced to professionals
yes. There are core professional service providers whose only focus is how do you safe keep a certain aspect of whatever is being stored. There's technology involved, there is security systems, there is manpower, all that put together. There is certain guidelines, and the depth of that subject just blew my mind.
And that did not exist in India
at all.
It was banks doing it by themselves.
Yeah, as some ancillary product. That drew me to that business model, and my idea was that now we need to make that concept easy to understand and approachable for people. Comes back to trust here also.
Right.
The core problem, in fact, the only thing that we struggled through the entire phase of that business was trust. So we built that model of trust. We've getting people to understand that we focus solely on safety and security of that, and explaining it to them in a fashion that is easily understandable. I can go ahead and talk about civil structures. That's not something that they understand. I'm like, okay, wall is a wall. RCC is RCC.
Was there an angle about a publicly traded company, the trust aspect, between a publicly traded company and a private?
Definitely. So that does play a lot of to the customer's mindset, or that leads to trusting the business, right? So we try to merge with a listed company, but then nobody's going to trust a random listed company end of the day, right? You start a XYZ private limited, make it public limited, it's not really going to do anything. It needs to be attached with a brand that sort of is synonymous with trust. Trust with brands takes years and decades to build. It's not easy. So that was one thing. We were trying to build it ourselves, that a brand sort of becomes synonymous with trust. And there's challenges on the way, operational challenges. You're trying to do things a certain way, right? You have everything, you've built the infrastructure, a lot of money went into getting it off the ground. So
roughly how much was the money, like some ballpark figure?
So somewhere this was 2018 2019 numbers, about 10 to 12 years go into starting something like this at that scale.
And this is without the land investment?
Correct.
It's not the land. Jubilee Hills itself is like a bigger, huge
not even
amount.
counting that.
You're referring to the locker room, the whole setup.
No matter where you do it, whatever it is, irrespective of your lease terms, all that aside, construction, building something of that scale.
For 100 lockers, or how many?
No, those were 4,000. 4,000 lockers in a single facility.
What are you talking about? But I could picture the image where there was a lot of locker size. There was like small, super small also.
So we have 6 to 7 different sizes. 6 to 7 sizes. We had 8, but some of them were sort of placeholders and fillers. So they come
to match up the whole size of the compartments.
Exactly.
They were filled.
There's certain ones. So we used to sell about 6 or 7.
So you had 4,000 small or big lockers, units, where people could come and put their
individually accessible.
Okay.
So just circling back to the partnerships. So you see that trying to get trust of customers is hard. What about, say, private banks or upcoming banks who don't have something like this but would have wanted to?
So that's something that we really tried to do. That was the idea. The reason behind setting up 4,000, we knew that we couldn't sell 4,000 ourselves.
Of course, it's very hard.
That's the sheer volume of those, right? Even getting to 20-30% would be great for us by ourselves. The idea was that we set up 6 different vaults. So it's not that all 4,000 were in one room. We set up separate vaults which are individually biometric controlled. So we wanted to lease out individual vaults.
One for each
bank or a collaborator or a partner in that sense. It can be jewelry brands, it can be banks, finance organizations. There's different industry sectors that also need large storage. There's finance companies that keep their collateral there. NBFCs, gold financing companies, they need to keep their collateral somewhere, and they usually take insurance on that collateral for its safekeeping. Now the premiums are reduced, or it helps the cost of those premiums if they are securely stored in certain BIS guideline driven storage areas.
So was that your value prop, that you could store it at a lower cost and lesser?
Yes.
Which means you would also need to take insurance for...
General building had to be insured, but
insurance against loss or anything?
No, the contents itself we don't have to take it because their insurance covers the contents itself. They do the disclosure to their insurance company. My job is to provide everything as per the guidelines.
You are into the facility business,
Correct.
not into the responsibility business.
Yes.
So what are the kind of insurances you would have to take, like fire, earthquake?
General
basic commercial trade license and everything.
Correct. So that's what sort of fits in, and we had all of that.
Now that you're out of that whole business, during those times didn't you have that fear that like we say nuclear codes जिसके पास है उसकी सबसे हालत खराब होती है, so now you have the access to all these lockers
every day. So it's very easy for somebody to point a finger at you,
right?
It's easy.
Pull a trigger and say that okay go अब access दे दे भाई सब मुझे.
But I guess the controls have to be in place such that no one person
that is what is practically also done, theoretically also done, but
SOPs are there.
Someone who is coming to जिसको लूटना है वो इतना नहीं सोचता है कि भाई इसने 4 चाबी सबके पास बांटी हुई है, वो सोचेगा एक के ट्रिगर लगाओ सब मिल जाएगा. इन बैंक्स वी डोंट नो हु इज एक्चुअली हैविंग एक्सेस टू एनीथिंग. व्हेन इट कम्स टू अ इंडिविजुअल बिजनेसमैन वी नो, लाइक द ज्वेलरी शॉप ओनर हमें पता है कि सेठ कौन है, वो जो गले पे बैठा है उसके पास वॉल्ट की चाबी होगी. यू कांट से दैट ही डजंट हैव द की. वी प्रेज्यूम दैट वे, राइट?
That's basically the biggest setback that we sort of had with the partnerships. For a partner to come in and he'll have to put all of his business with us. He's basically converging all of his risk into one place, which is something that they don't want.
They want to do it at their own current setup also. They don't want to move.
But can't that risk be underwritten? Because they will have to underwrite that risk somewhere, even if they do it themselves or...
They disperse it. So
multiple branches.
Yes. So somebody who has this high level of risk has volume in branches.
For this concentrated risk here.
Which is something that they were not willing to do.
So you spent, you or your family would have spent 10 to 12 crores, and then what happened eventually?
Not just us, right? Obviously it was...
You had other
bunch of people who put in. I mean, the business was, it wasn't net profit. So since it was our own property, it was easier for us to sort of absorb the, you know, the losses or the risk.
So you're able to sell off the lockers and everything?
Yeah, we were able to do that. End of the day, it's steel, right?
Price went up anyway.
Price went up because they were all purchased. They were all purchased in 2017. Steel price changed quite a bit. So the exit plan was easier for us to, you know, sort of execute.
It depends on business to business. Like if it's an FMCG business, आपका रॉ मटेरियल खराब हो जाता है.
लॉकर रिफर्बिशमेंट नहीं रहता है क्या?
नहीं, स्टील की वैल्यू बढ़ रही है. लॉकर
I don't even have to sell it at scrap.
Exactly,
there's buyers to these cabinets. It's all keys, everything is there. Somebody
the front is always looking glittery nice.
Yeah.
It was never damaged. You just move out the whole stuff. पीछे से खराब हो रहा है, जैसे स्क्रू फिटिंग है, वो वैसे भी नहीं दिखना है.
Yeah.
So
they're all like put it back. You put it.
It's like modular thing. Just move and move out.
So the fascia is the easiest part to replace also. For us, we did like in one gold theme and all of that. So that brass gold color में किए थे. That sort of थोड़ा दिखता है.
So marginal losses are obviously when you shut down something, it's way better than losing a bigger pie. Like पूरा पैसा डुबाने से तो अच्छा है कि वो, like when you talk about COVID times, a lot of real estate contacts keep saying costs have went up, we are almost on the verge of losing business. But the reality which I knew, my relatives from Raipur, they told me they are into steel business, ये TMT rods and everything. वो बोल रहे थे भाई सब बिल्डर लोगों ने पूरा माल लेके रखा हुआ 5 साल से पड़ा है, स्टील के प्राइस इतने बढ़ गए हैं कि वो कोटेशन भी नया दिखाते हैं, माल पुराना ही है. So they are not in a loss actually. They bought cement, they bought, a lot of people have done that.
So this learning I got from my dad in his steel MS wire. So what you buy inventory, right? So they don't mine steel. You get
raw.
Yeah, you get raw steel and they draw final product. Binding wire tak draw karte hai, different gauges. So it's processing of steel. So you get steel as rebar, right? There's solid rods and bars that you get and which are drawn down. Now let's say you purchase this inventory at 30,000 a ton, and you process it. You sell it for 5%, 10% upsell, and then you probably are going to charge, let's say 35 पे खरीदा, 50 पे बेचना है, right? Processing पूरा, and then you have your net margin considered, assumed to it, 50,000 पे बेचना है. Now steel price goes up to about 50,000, right? You have to buy new material, right? And it comes down to a rotational business. Now when that happens, you cannot sit and say, "Arey, my selling price went down, my purchase price is going up." I can't. If you sit on your inventory, there is no way.
Losing money.
Sell it at the new price and purchase inventory at the same time. So your inventory is there. When the price falls, sell that
bigger one, bigger profit share.
So if you're letting your inventory sit, you're losing more money. You just have to rotate it.
It's the same thing applied for all the commodity market, like even gold.
हाँ.
उनको daily day in day out करना है बिलिंग में, लेजर उनको daily close करना है. Even if it's a loss, it's okay. And most of the time recently when the volatility has increased in India from last few months, every day the billion prices change globally. In India they are still running yesterday's record, and there's a lot of losses also. They take a hit, but sometimes they end up with big profits also when you're buying an inventory at a better price. तो ये इन्वेंट्री मैनेजमेंट कमोडिटी प्राइस में बहुत ही.
So is there some speculation that goes on when you're trying to buy steel? Or next month बढ़ेगा or
100%. Always there is always certain forecast. I mean, you will have to track international markets accordingly. It all petroleum पे बहुत depend करता है. So no, we can track
correlation with.
Yes.
पर उसमें भी बहुत एक बड़ा झटका सारे बिजनेस ओनर्स को होता है जब डॉलर रेट जब बढ़ता है ना, सॉफ्टवेयर वाले खुश होते हैं, यस. बट यहाँ पे बैंड बच जाते हैं बिकॉज ऑर्डर्स वेर ऑलरेडी प्लेस्ड एट ए हायर प्राइस. तो एनी फ्लक्चुएशन विल हिट देम. दे आर इम्पोर्टिंग, राइट? सो
then वो scale, the deviation in how much the price is fluctuating, right, takes a big toll on businesses. Eventually it will catch up to the consumer. They don't realize it. By the time they catch up, usually RBI or government's doing something to control that inflation. Correction हो जाता है, but
कंज्यूमर को उतना समझ में नहीं आता है. बट टॉकिंग अबाउट द इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट हु आर रनिंग इट, बिकॉज आई एम कमिंग बैक फ्रॉम माय फर्स्ट हैंड एक्सपीरियंस विद माय रिलेटिव हु ended up with a 15 crore loss. Eventually in his life, he had to sell off all his business because of primarily dollar fluctuation. उन्होंने पूरा LC लेके रखा था बाहर से, पूरे पैसे उन्होंने बैंक को दे दिए थे, and prices fluctuated. He had to buy at a higher price, and by the time the inventory came back to India through the container ships and everything, 3 months later, again the price came back to normal. So other people who were buying at X price, and he ended up buying at a very higher price. And we're talking about huge amounts. So that actually hurts.
It's a similar thing, right? So my grandfather's into construction of roads, and in his time he was doing that. Whenever you quote to the government for any certain project, roadways ke liye, you assume a buffer saying that my raw material is going to be this much, I'm going to finish this work, this is my quoted price, and you take a inflation of about 10-12%. Normally it's about 7 or 8%. You take an inflation of 10 or 12%, worst case scenario 50% more than current market inflation. The price is going to go up, and that depends on the tenure of the project as well. If it's 1 year, they'll average it out. If it's over 2 years, respective, you have indexes to increase it by that much. A certain project that he was doing, steel prices, right? So they do road works, pipes ke liye they have to purchase steel. Price shot up to by almost 2.5x.
Wow.
Whoa.
Cannot predict, right? This was early 2000s when global petroleum, some petroleum just suddenly disrupted everything. Steel went 2.5x. It's impossible for a business to purchase steel at that value. And what they usually do is, if
a tender is done at X amount,
you assume a certain buffer in your quote price itself, saying that there is a possibility of this much inflation, and you try to keep a certain amount of inventory on hand to support yourself until the prices normalize. With that 2.5x, it was very difficult to even have enough inventory to,
even the government would have understood, right?
But clauses are different with government. पहले काम करो, then you will have to go, ask for reimbursement.
ऐसा नहीं होता. ऐसा आपको लगता है.
They want to.
It is not understanding.
Public में बोलना गलत बात लगेगा, but
lot more different with Gadkari, where roadworks payments are a lot more prompt. But this was like 30 years ago, right? It was very different. I mean, you can't blame an individual sitting in that chair because your regulations are defined that way. Somebody has to think like 10 years ahead to see what might happen, and then have certain clauses defined to protect businesses in the long run. I don't think there is anybody out there sitting. There's one thing that I was like, similar podcast by the Nikhil Kamath, right? He said something about the organizations that control regulation have no idea as to how these startups or these businesses even run. They don't know what these companies or startups need to be able to create regulations to help them succeed. So we are in this vicious cycle. So there needs to be representation, in those regulatory bodies from people who are actually facing these problems.
Startups are evolving. They have new minds. They have got different kind of diverse experiences.
Different kinds of challenges that now we are trying to solve and facing.
They are also solving it, and government has their own set of problems.
Right.
They are also going through that.
There needs to be a collaborative work from regulators. I mean, obviously, nobody's going to, as a founder, I'm not going to come in and say, no way, that I don't want regulation. Obviously, there needs to be regulation. That keeps me, not just me in check, my competitors in check, everybody in check, so that this level playing
fair
field.
Play,
Right? Now, but there needs to be collaborative work between these regulators and people who are actually on the ground doing.
I think in some of the important areas, the consultation happens as a process, I guess, in telecom side and fintech. It does, but maybe not in all areas.
There's not much in the tech field, like this data protection act that came in, right? It's not really well written. Great start, but a lot of iterations are needed. That's where collaboration really comes in. You put so much red tape and hurdles as to how it needs to be done. It becomes very difficult. Coming down to some, even for a locker company, right? Protecting customer data is key. Right? Digitally, sure, great. But even with hard records, we're supposed to keep customer data safe. How does that fit into regulatory bodies asking us to disclose it, making it public? Right? So
in India, you can't hide it from the government if there's a serious political pressure.
correct.
Even I
But
mean, I'm not
the
talking
risk-
about you, but even the banks are also going to reveal it, which is why
It has to be.
the big shots used to go to Swiss.
Yeah.
Why would they go to Swiss if it was so
Because,
secure in
yeah,
India?
Exactly. They're protected in terms of individuals' personal
Privacy,
PII,
okay.
right? That's what they call it, personally identifiable information. But if the government itself, their bodies are not able to keep it safe, there's regulations in the US. Even in the US, you cannot hide anything from the government. If FBI or SEC comes knocking at your door, you're supposed to disclose everything. You cannot say this is my consumer's data. You cannot disclose. There's no way you can do that. Right?
Yeah, even in
You're
India,
supposed to
you have
disclose
lawful
it.
interception
Correct.
for.
But there's HIPAA regulations. For example, the health code protection. Anything that can identify your health records or your banking, there's separate guidelines.
Yeah.
Right?
HIPAA Act is there where
So these
you
acts,
have to anonymize data.
these acts are applicable to government and regulatory bodies also as to how they deal with it. This specifically, again, sort of looping back, I've seen it in Deloitte. We are working with the government, right? There's a Department of Technology for the state of Louisiana. There were times when, we email a set of data to them saying like, hey, this came through, and they used to panic, come running to or disconnect those cables off of their network, and they used to be like, I just saw an SSN in there. I'm like, don't worry, man, it's just a junk, random, scrambled SSN that I shared. It's not. I'm like, but it's in the SSN format. It gets flagged, and the entire department gets referred.
Oh.
So
That's compliance, actually, very strong compliance.
They're worried that because they have access to that data.
Here I could go to any government website, just do a site prompt on Google and find out a lot of everyone's Aadhaar code, Aadhaar details, personal details, everything publicly available. Forget getting hacked. I am not even close to edge of a hacker. I am just doing a Google search.
And you'll find everything.
And I can find everything. Where is the compliance here?
So how exactly is the Data Protection Act really helping? It came back to us. Somebody was asking, one of our clients, right, was asking us with Valetdesk, maybe jumping over, but just to sort of connect to this. They were like, hey, how do you secure our data? Right? Obviously, hundreds of people are checking into my system every hour. Different restaurants, different locations. Same people checks in, a guy checks in 6 times a day, different places. One of the businesses asked, I'm like, this customer is visiting me, right? My business, my restaurant. He's walking in, he's dining here. Now, he is going to question me as a business as to where his data is going, which could include mobile number or the amount of time he spent, car number, whatever is going to be there. And he was questioning me as to what I do to protect that data. And I told him, no, there's obviously the Data Protection Act, this and that. And, this is where I sort of felt like, Act is there, doesn't really help anyone, but just sort of, sort of bubble wrap the whole thing and say, no, we've done our due diligence, it's there. Every company is filing certain, regulatory paperwork. And they are filing affidavits that they are doing certain things to keep data protection in check. But end of the day, if it is not driven in terms of compliance mindsets within the company itself,
I don't give my phone numbers at different places for reservations because I don't want them to sell my data.
Correct.
And I don't want marketing calls.
I do. Because I am a social media person. I feel like अब इससे ज़्यादा क्या ही कर लेंगे वो ले भाई नंबर ही तो है worst case क्या होगा 2 साल का I'll change my number. I mean because without that I can't check out of a restaurant, I can't check out at the counter of a shopping mall. I have to give my number or my wife's number. Someone has to answer the spam number.
I've seen the 2 SIM strategy. People use 2 SIMs.
One for one that's public.
That's what I do the same, but I don't even carry my second phone because of a headache. Like I can't lay, and second phone gets so many calls. Then I switched to a data only SIM. There was this some service I forgot. I know the founder. That company shut down now just this year out of funding. They got like almost 10 or 15 million dollars in funding. Last few years they ran the company. Sif data only SIM.
The virtual SIM.
Virtual SIM thing. And they're out of business. Zip dial नहीं.
Regulation ना.
तो eventually क्या मिला? Ultimately भाई number बदल लो इतना important है. Tell your relatives that I'm out of this number. I changed my number. But without giving away data, I know I'm loosely saying that give away your data. But it's not worth a headache also going through all these problems. Go to Decathlon, a well-known store. People fight there. I see news. People fight and say, without number, I want my bill. It goes to the news. That guy gets happy. देखा मेरा नाम आया. But at cost of what? Boss, mental peace चला गया. दे दो 200 का
I'll
number है.
extrapolate the same sim to one more angle. Let's say you are giving your biometrics.
Biometrics, yes.
You can't change it.
We can't change it. Biometrics, we aren't giving it because I don't see anywhere we are using it except for property buying or selling. Or kahin par bhi, we don't have readers, right? Yes, I do recall our door security locks have biometrics. But that is again, I am presuming, stored locally. Hai wo. Unless companies mein, I think it's again cloud connected because the HR would get the data, right?
Aadhaar is stored on the cloud. Everything else is locally stored.
So that's the only place where I see biometrics are used, right? So with phone number, everything.
I'm just tying to the point of data privacy. Sims to badal sakte hain, phone numbers to badal sakte hain.
It's not easy to do that regulation. And you come up with something like the Data Protection Act.
सर, आप बिग बास्केट का डेटा जब हैक हुआ था, मेरा एड्रेस सब कुछ उसमें चला गया था. जोमेटो का हैक हुआ था. जोमेटो नहीं, ये कौन सा, डोमिनोज. गो टू iGotPawn.com some website है. वहाँ पर when I put my number, all my details are out and I was like, इतने सालों से बचा के क्या ही मिला. Okay, it's my old house address, that's okay. But क्या ही मिल गया, इतना टेंशन लिया जिंदगी पूरा. And I'm talking about Big Basket and Domino India. It's not a...
Yes, sir, all of this is very nicely used by digital arrest scams and...
No, my point is, Domino's is not a small ABCD bakery in the gully, right? कि हमने उसको नंबर नहीं दिया, बेकरी वाले से हम लड़ लेते हैं. ये इंटरनेशनल है तो सब for your bill, you have to give your number. The bill will be sent to you. We are paperless. All the सुत्ती मारेंगे, डेटा ले लेंगे. लास्ट में हैक हो जाता है. तो मेरा डेटा वैसे ही जा रहा था. ले भाई, क्या ही कर ले.
Hacking तो बहुत दूर की बात है. There's people out there I'm not going to name. I've seen people come to me and I was like, I'm from so and so company. You want some data? For 1,500 rupees, I'll sell you 1 lakh data.
We just entered this society and I was asked to enter your details for the gate approval. I am kind of against it. You won't believe right now our society has an app called as Apna Complex, No Broker, My Gate. दूध का हमारा है बीबी डेली. वी यूज़ वन मोर. रिलायंस का मिल्क बास्केट रिलायंस. आई हैव जस्ट स्टार्टेड प्रोलीवैक. So many 8 apps and now for the car parking entry.
You need a super app to manage them all and rule them all.
For the car entry,
one ring to rule them all.
For the car entry we have Park Plus. That's there, right?
Park Plus ka app is not mandatory, na?
For the registration it is mandatory, and for MyGate to show the car has entered through Park Plus you have to keep the app. App might not be mandatory. It was needed to at least connect it. एक बार कनेक्शन दे दिया तो आपने डेटा तो यहाँ से वहाँ दे दिया. अब पार्क प्लेस बोलता है पाव लीटर तेल दे रहे हैं हम आपको, आप अपना डेटा अपलोड करो. नहीं करेंगे तो वो अपना डेटा माईगेट को नहीं देगा. माईगेट को डेटा नहीं मिल रहा है तो मेरी कार का एंट्री एग्जिट नहीं मिल रहा है. अब कार का एंट्री एग्जिट क्यों ज़रूरी है? वो बैरियर खुलने के लिए. सो इनडायरेक्टली आई हैव लाइक 8 apps which I am right now counting it. And yes, we also have 3 more apps. गैस रिचार्ज का एक ऐप है, पावर रिचार्ज का अभी नो ब्रोकर में आ गया है. We are like almost 10 apps right now in this basic society in Hyderabad. I don't know about the hi-fi people, what they do.
No, this is integrated. It's all tech.
But my point is, all of these, when we are talking about security and privacy, आप वहाँ तो रजिस्टर हो ना सर, मेंटेनेंस पेमेंट के लिए. फिर आप फ्लैट का मेंटेनेंस, वो जो गवर्नमेंट को प्रॉपर्टी टैक्स पे करते हैं, एम आधार ने, उनका प्रॉपर्टी टैक्स का क्या ऐप है?
In my mind, I can imagine companies doing data analytics and then trying to figure out क्या कर सकते हैं, इस डेटा से पैसे कैसे बनाएंगे.
I have given up. I am not trying to be like a hero कि हाँ चलता है नहीं. क्या करूँगा मैं? 10 ऐप तो ज़रूरी है सोसाइटी के अंदर. मेरा बेटा सामने सुपरमार्केट जा रहा है तो किड एट गेट, डू यू वांट टू अप्रूव? कन्वीनियंस है, बट एट ए कॉस्ट. डेटा तो जा रहा है. अब क्या कर सकते हैं? There's no other option.
So there is it's a double-edged sword, right? Obviously. So technology does give you a lot of convenience. That's the main cause of me sort of putting Valetdesk together as well. But yes, at the cost of everyone's data being out there. We do get a lot of people who go in and say, no, I don't want to get into the system. And they say, no, I don't want to be part of this system at all. So Valetdesk specifically has a mechanism. We still keep it digital, wherein you don't have to carry a card. When you scan the QR, just don't send that message. You're still in the system. Those challenges were like the most, trust building and all of that. Sort of became very difficult. It was just running month over month.
So how long did you run it? Like 1 year?
No, 5 years.
4-5 years.
4-5 years.
So you burnt money in that, running salaries, team.
Yes, every month.
At least security थोड़ा रहेगा, 2-3 लोग management.
We had 7-8 people.
Wow.
3 were security. Again, you're trying to keep up the sort of opulence of the place. So you have your maintenance staff. Then there's obviously a team of people operating it locally. Some amount of sales. We did acquire customers as well.
Ended up getting any politicians or film stars?
Can't disclose, unfortunately.
Now you can. Now you can.
Data privacy, I have to live by it now.
यार अपने पास बंदूक नहीं है, ट्रिगर नहीं है, मैं जो बात बोल रहा था वही नहीं है.
No, but yeah, generally we've had a lot of HNIs, we had youngsters. We had youngsters who came in. We initially
What would
had
youngsters want to hide? Like not hide, but
a lot of people
safeguard.
with crypto drives. When I said a lot of people who use the smallest ones, the sleek small ones. People used to get put in their crypto drives. So the facility basically had humidity control and temperature control. So since it was a strong RCC building, it was protected with dust and humidity, which is the main thing that these guys need to save their.
When I speak to my friend from Maharashtra who runs a gold store,
okay,
हम उनसे जब भी बात करते हैं, I talk about properties and he talks about gold. So we talk and मैंने बोला तो आप लोग प्रॉपर्टी जब खरीदा आपने तो सब देखा था? उसने बोला हाँ सब देखा हमने, सब रिसर्च करके स्ट्रॉन्ग रूम बनाया. मैंने कहा नेबर वाले प्रॉपर्टी खरीदे या फिर मैं वहाँ से दीवार खोद के आ जाऊँ? आप जुबली में तो वैसे ही सीन है, सब चिपके लोग रहते हैं तो.
So
Can't someone drill a hole and come into your?
Nope. So we are classified one of the safest buildings in the country. So we had a class rating of class AA.
Okay.
The RBI's rating ends at class A in India. So class AA is an international standard where all 6 sides were 18-inch full RCC walls. Normally when you do a construction like this, there are some walls which are precast. So what they do is ek wall aise aa jata hai, and then they do another precast that is laid out like this, like a Lego brick, for example. A millimeter na gap, thoda gap banta hai usme. These were all poured in at once. So there is no gap even. And to get that class AA, within that 18 inches, 6 inches of steel.
Okay.
So we've obviously leased the building out to an F&B now.
And what about the bottom?
It's all sheetrock, na? It's Jubilee Hills, that's the best part about it. It's all sheetrock.
Only Elon can come. Boring company se tunnel
So nobody is coming up.
Coming down.
So
after 3-4 years of running it, you realize that it's not working out. So
the way general real estate grew, right? It had to make a lot more money than like 20-30% occupancy for me to putting so much effort in to run it. I can just relax, lease it out. Real estate seemed better in Jubilee Hills.
Give it to some restaurant guy in Jubilee and
it's his headache to run it now.
Make more money.
So,
but isn't the overall again random question about Jubilee? I'm connecting back to real estate. Isn't the area dying in a way?
Jubilee
slowing down at least, not dying could be the word.
No, it is definitely from a residential standpoint, yes. But there's a lot of commercial scope specific to 45. 36 sort of plateaued because there's a lot of construction. Maybe it'll go full cycle with places like, for example, Raheja's Mindspace. They're bringing all the buildings down and reconstructing it. There is technologies to redo buildings now without disrupting, neighboring properties and things like that, which are at quite affordable rates available in terms of construction, standards.
So there's a change from residential to commercial.
Correct. So that definitely.
I don't trust it anymore. Like I live in Kokapet and there's a neighbor next to us who has just started digging his 50th floor tower. Okay. From last 1 year, he has been digging by blasting and whatever activities. And I just saw recently the neighboring society's complete wall caved in. And last 1 month he has been reinforcing cement भर रहा है उसको wall बना रहा है तो ये तो बच गया क्या अगर वो सोसाइटी पास वाली आ जाती है अंदर तो
So there are mechanisms to do it. You'll have to, as you go dig deeper in, right, you need to start erecting retaining walls. There are mechanisms.
I mean, he had a retaining wall originally, which I could see.
Okay.
And still around the rainy season last month.
But if he dug underneath so it really depends on what the footing is. So you'll have to go that much further down.
And everyone in Hyderabad nowadays is a big builder and everyone is going 50 feet. जिसको experience 5 floor का ही था, अब वो 50 floor का बना रहा है. तो वो एक बड़ा problem है.
Regulation again.
I'll show you.
Sort of
don't
gotten
worry.
a little difficult. So the last 10-year window regulations were a lot more lenient in terms of FSIs, floor space index and all. High rises were coming up left and right everywhere. Presentation wise, Hyderabad looks great.
Yeah.
But at
we are screwing up
cost of regulation.
Other way.
Yeah.
What was the limitation of just doing research? It feels like you had to put up a POC and then test out the idea. No matter how much research.
That's something so we didn't do a POC. Something like this at scale, you can't do a POC.
You can't, right? You can't say कि
What
मैं
I
10
mean by
locker बना के
POC
शुरू कर रहा हूँ.
No, this was your POC.
This
the
was.
Jubilee Hills was the POC.
Right. This was the POC. The single facility with 4,000 lockers was the POC. So the idea expansion was that to set up satellite self-access locker stores. The idea or concept behind that was that first establish the brand of trust and then expand out to self-serve storage. No person completely secure all components, all lockers in the bunker. There is technology, it's already available. It's not like something that is 10 years down the line. It's just the cost factor. It'll probably get cheaper and more accessible and affordable in the next 10 years.
One, it's only for the ultra rich. Two, ultra rich don't disclose all these things in the...
Not necessarily. So with scale, it can be brought down to every segment. But
why do you want for every segment? The money is not with all the segments, right?
Everybody wants to store. What if there might be somebody in small part of Hyderabad or like some tier 2 city as well, wherein they might have some jewelry, some it's heritage for them, right? This is not something that they sell or they get rid of or they want to make money out of. It's their my great grandmother's it can
memories
be
and stuff.
They just keep it. Now these need to be stored long term. Now keeping it in a facility like this doesn't make sense. He's not going to pay all of this money to keep it for that long. Now self-serve, they're like dark stores, like what Instamart are doing. It's not visible. But if you ever want to go check it and have access to it, you have a self-serve mechanism to do it. We give you all your localized biometric access. Everybody's out there. You just go, we give you like a card, an ATM card, we give you a kiosk.
Access card.
Yeah. So you go there, you put in your credentials, your biometric face, you can do 4-level identification, right? Put a card, put a pin, finger, face, everything.
So instead of a standalone unit, did it make sense to do it in a mall or something where people could stroll in casually and then do whatever they need to do?
That would sort of make it very difficult to sell the security aspect of it, because if it is an isolated facility, you can ensure your safety protocols. But if it is a facility or a place with high footfall, becomes very difficult.
I wouldn't even want to carry anything valuable towards the mall and
come back
with it.
Comes back to the psychology, right? If it is very accessible, you're not going to feel very secure.
आप बैंक भी जाते हो तो you have these thoughts, right? I mean, at least because I have seen a lot of movies. If I'm carrying a big bag and going to a bank, the chances of getting looted is high. Versus if it's close by, which is why now we have banks in every area and having it accessible.
The same logic is someone could always be watching this facility to figure out who is coming and going, and so different challenges.
So with this specific facility, right, even the compound, the gate, everything's hidden. You can't really see inside the building. So a car goes in, yes, they can track you, but what is going in and out other than the car itself will be hidden.
That makes sense.
You can go in with like a briefcase, you can come out with a briefcase, you can go in with like a big trunk, like 4 suitcases. You wouldn't know, because you go inside, you directly put it in the lift. We have mechanisms, it goes up, and it's not really visible. You're inside the facility.
Anyway, let's move on and go towards the next set of your business. So what?
Yeah.
So eventually it didn't work out, which is fine. I mean, life ऐसा ही होता है.
Yeah. I mean,
Learnings come up at least.
Exactly. That's more valuable for in terms of right from my dad's business, right from that steel thing. There's little bits of learning.
Do you guys still own that industrial land or जो factory
We
था?
do. Yeah.
So didn't you
There's
come
an
to your
industry
thought
still
that
running, so we've given it out for somebody else to run.
So didn't that come to your thought when locker room didn't work out? You felt कि यार इसी को मैं बड़ा करता और बड़ी factory बनाता.
The way Valetdesk came in as well stemmed from locker company. It came out of it.
So what is Valetdesk?
Valetdesk basically at its core is trying to solve the accessible parking problem.
Okay.
Right. No matter where you go, doesn't matter which city you're in, it doesn't matter which country you're in, parking is not the most accessible thing in most, if not all, major cities.
Right.
It's the least accessible thing when somebody is out there trying, especially now this is something that I sort of differ in terms of how like some of the other people in the business think. It's not a consumer problem, it's a business problem.
Yeah, businesses suffer if people can't.
Exactly. Your consumer will find a way. He'll find a way, maybe at his liability, his cost. He might Uber, he'll find a way. But making it difficult for your consumer to come in is the business's challenge. That's how we saw it. And the reason we saw it that way sort of stems from the locker company, wherein from building regulations, safety regulations, we were doing some consulting work for some of the other construction projects. So that was sort of like a side thing. We consulted on, security and, surveillance mechanisms, how to do it better, how to, residentials also. How do we make, common areas more secure? How do we restrict false acceptances into the community?
Right.
Let's say you trying to pre-approve your Swiggy guy, right? Somebody dressed as Swiggy can come in, right? How do we prevent all of that? MyGate and all those play a role now in that security aspect. We're trying to create policies and general regulatory, SOPs that can be defined across everybody, and then, let all of these technological partners build tech to support those regulations. So that's sort of what we were doing. So I've worked with some urban planners and things like that who currently do a lot of projects, not just in Hyderabad, in Bangalore and Mumbai as well. And through that, we've got to different
those
aspects of
relationships helped here.
Correct, definitely. So we've started identifying different aspects of commercial buildings. Be it we've never really gotten into residential spaces, but commercial buildings we've done a few in terms of consulting with security access and all of that, and they've always first thing understanding how much. When we come in at a stage where the project is very nascent, where everything is on paper, right? It's all blueprints. They haven't even dug the ground there, just site boundaries are drawn out. Now we're like, how many floors do we go? Right? How much of it is going to be parking? How many levels is going to be above the ground? At that stage. And we're trying to understand, and we're trying to come up with, standard equations to come up with, number of parkings. This was the first problem that always came out. We did like about 5 or 6 projects.
But isn't this already on the builder's mind?
Exactly. But they don't have an answer because they can't. It's very difficult to predict. Now let's say I'm building here Kokapet 1, right? Now he's going to assume, okay, I'm going to do 20% or 30% in parking, and 1 lakh square feet mein 30,000 square feet mein parking karta hu, and then the other 70,000 square feet is going to be commercial access, right? Now in that commercial access, when you say commercial access, if it is offices, right, to a certain degree you can predict. Still unpredictable to a certain degree, a certain threshold you are able to say this is going to be, let's say, capable of accommodating 50,000 people in that 70,000 square feet.
It's a mix of businesses, there's a challenge.
Yes. Probably. If it is all retail, then think about Sharat City Capital. It's always fact. I don't think they would have even anticipated that amount of footfall. Right? They would have thought, okay, I can do, this is the retail space, this is the walkways, elevators, itna retail space mein I'll get, let's say, 200 stores as just a general number. and 200 stores, maybe 20-30 people per hour visit a store. This is how much footfall you get in an hour.
And probably parking is the last thing on their mind. They're more worried about how they can sell their shops.
They're capitalistic.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they are looking to make money.
The
Parking
builder is probably looking to sell.
So
it's the
that's
end business is the
exactly. So that's where I plugged Valetdesk, saying the main vision is there is a way to make parking profitable. If you're falling short, it's a problem. If you're giving excess, they have a problem saying that why am I losing profitability in terms of sellable area, right? If you understand parking patterns across the city, forget the city, the region, right? If Kondapur area, if you understand parking patterns and requirement of parking spaces, then you can actually monetize on excess parking that you build. So that's sort of, where...
How would you monetize excess parking, sir?
Lease it out. It's commercial space, it's open access.
But parking space is probably not registered with the authorities as commercial space?
It is.
Okay.
It's free.
So
Most
earlier
places,
Telangana government had not stopped this, but now they don't allow you to charge for the parking space.
for your own customer.
For your own
If
customer.
they are not your customer, you're allowed to charge.
You're allowed to charge?
Yes.
When did that change?
The regulation was always the same. So the fine print of that regulation is, if a consumer is specifically for parking costs, right? If a consumer pays more than your stipulated parking cost, then you cannot charge him extra for parking.
Okay.
So let's say you charge 100 rupees for parking. Let's say 100 rupees is the flat rate.
Right.
You're not charging per hour or anything. It's 100 rupees. And your consumer spends more than 100 rupees, you are no longer allowed to charge that 100 rupees. But
So
if
you have
that
to absorb
consumer-
it.
Yes, you have to absorb it because he's spending that amount. That is only Telangana's regulation.
Who absorbs it? Is it you
business.
or is it the business?
The business needs.
The business.
The
But
business.
that's not in a way fair to the
Business.
commercial building or the business owners, because of course he has also spent on the physical space and everything, right? कहीं से तो cost निकालना है. There's security around the basement, keep up of the maintenance and everything. It has to be recovered. The only way they could recover from those customers who are just doing window shopping, आए घूमने चले गए और दिन में 500 गाड़ी में से 250 vehicles didn't buy anything because parking is free. Then where would they pay these salaries from? And that was a problem which happened, I think, 10 years or something back when the Telangana government brought this change.
Definitely.
And
there was a lot of pushback. So at that stage, the sub clause was put in that they have to spend
X
a
amount,
certain
show the
amount.
bill, and then people exit now. So now, then why would someone spend money with Valetdesk? The business, why would they spend money? And
So
apart from convenience to the consumer.
So we don't just bring in. So there's different use cases how Valetdesk comes in, right? Valetdesk doesn't just do like a valet recall system, which is usually sold to restaurants or businesses that provide valet as a value add and a convenience, right? So that product specifically goes to restaurants, hotels. Now, the reason they're providing that is to elevate their experience. So that the customer spends time inside rather than finding parking outside.
Right.
Now, giving them a good experience there does matter to them. So, Valetdesk sort of sells itself in that regard. But the core of Valetdesk, now leaving the name aside, we started off with this product, but it sort of stemmed around solving the parking availability problem in general. So, we do a lot of these projects where we consult with some of the big name. We do it with Phoenix, for example. So we not just do this, we make the building ready to handle parking in the long run. So if you're saying that you have an app for Park Plus, you have an app for MyGate, No Broker, our concept is that a user should not have to download all these apps. My Valetdesk does not put an app in anyone's hand. You don't have an app at all. You should be able to access the facility and the premises, at least revolving around parking itself, that you don't need an app. You have your security system. Why do you have to put an app? Why does the user have to provide anything else? So that's sort of the core ideology that we have. And once
something has to tie with their identity. Maybe the
It should be your vehicle number, not you.
But if you're a guest versus a resident or guest versus an office.
Irrespective. So the way that ideology works is you take that vehicle number in. If it is a visitor and if it's a restricted building, let the security check them in. Now that security compliance decision can be taken as a association's decision to implement security policies. Now you want to track everybody coming in, check them in. If you don't want to, then you don't have to. But you still need a record of the vehicle coming in. That's something that you can do through your camera systems and your security systems, and you can log everything. You can get what vehicle it is, what time it came in, the color of it, all of this through image processing.
So if I run a business, let's say I run a restaurant, and if I have 1,000 cars coming in daily, like 1,000 coming in, out, lunch, dinner, whatever. So monthly 30,000 cars. What would be the rough cost? So for me as a business, which I'll have to spend so that I can just get a ballpark figure.
So the idea is that we replace the traditional Valet ticket. We charge the same as what that Valet ticket would do, what you would spend on a Valet ticket, which is a decent Valet ticket cost, which is about 2 rupees, 2.5 rupees per Valet card. Now that comes with all the additional benefits of you being able to understand your customer demographics. You get the whole data suite. Obviously, you get your own dashboard. You control your data as a business. Then you obviously elevate your guest experience where they are managing it better. There's different use cases that we actually come across when we talk to different clients. Somebody in Pune, there was a business in a restaurant, a club in Pune. They spent like 1.5 rupees. They printed out like these long fancy cards. They're like thick 120 150 GSM cards, right? Put their logo, fancy everything. There's 3-tier cards, multi-slip, where like one stays with the valet, 2 given to the customer. Customer tears it up, gives 1 and keeps 1 while requesting it. They did all of that. Their biggest challenge is in Mumbai, in the coastal area, it rains for a good 6 months of the year. And these valet tickets, they get drenched and they're having to reissue valet tickets to the same customer 3 times a night. And they're losing a lot of these inventory because they're kept outside. So he's spending 15 to 20,000 every week in replenishing it. So what he did was, then he got all of these fancy 5-6 rupee cards which are laminated, which are tear proof, like business cards. And that becomes a challenge for him again, because now once you issue that, it's waste, it's disposable. It's a lot of paper that goes waste. Now these drivers, what they do is they try to issue it to somebody, accidentally tears it up or something, throws it, gives another one to them. Now there's a lot of leakage that they have. Now in terms of the amount of business, in terms of percentage, that in itself is a small percentage, which usually businesses used to be like, let's absorb it. This is not something I want to worry about. Now when we give them a mechanism to just completely eliminate it and make it zero, they're happy to take it. The other aspect is obviously the operational benefits. You get to keep your staff in check, attendance of like all the drivers, they're doing properly. Liability goes down. A lot of times these are some of the things. So we do it in like 5-6 hospital brands in Hyderabad and in Mumbai.
So are the drivers hired by the businesses, or
sometimes,
are they?
Sometimes yes.
Do you get them? Do you provide that as a service?
Yeah, that's a separate. We don't get into people management. What we do is we partner with different providers and vendors.
So you're trying to be the Uber.
Yeah,
you don't want to hire the
create
drivers.
A partner ecosystem where Uber in the end has a payout mechanism to them. We don't have that. We are fully transparent. We'll give you the data as to what your drivers.
We are software suppliers, like SaaS.
I'll give the business data. I'll give the valet operator his data, saying that, hey, this is what your driver's done. This is the working hours. You collect the payment from them and you pay your driver the way it needs to be. So I'm creating a system that can organize it, but I don't want to take up that people management headache ourselves.
So what do you provide to the owner of the car that they can show to the valet?
It's a digital WhatsApp message.
Okay.
It's all on WhatsApp. There's fail safes. We sort of.
So suppose the customer does not have a phone, just hypothetically.
Okay.
What happens then?
Well, I mean, it's
Meaning-
very
Never
difficult. Yeah. in modern day India, that like somebody
I'm
does
just
not
doing
have a
edge
phone.
case testing.
Yeah.
Say they have
So-
a smart, dumb phone rather.
They just provide their phone number and still get an SMS.
Okay, SMS works.
So it tries to send the message. If not, it falls back to an SMS.
So there's a cost of SMS that you absorb in a way, right?
Yes,
And that's part of the
that's part of the
subscription.
subscription which gets.
And these days, those costs have gone
calculated.
very low, like cost of SMS or even WhatsApp integrated.
But it adds up, I guess.
Just to get an idea, what is the cost of WhatsApp messages these days? Like it's
WhatsApp?
3 paise or
WhatsApp is about 15 paise.
is it?
Yeah.
Because I have seen subscriptions way lower than 2-3 paise.
WhatsApp?
Yes, it's for $1 million. There was some amount, so you add it as a bundle up monthly services.
No, it's not 3 paise. It's 15 paise. So depending on the vendor,
Depending on the volume
and all,
also,
maybe
probably,
12 to maybe 12 or 12.
What about
paise.
SMS?
SMS is more expensive than WhatsApp.
Yeah.
But WhatsApp costs went down. WhatsApp recently dropped their prices specifically for India.
Okay.
They didn't reduce it anywhere in the world. Indian price list, they've cut it down by almost 60% to compete with SMS. So SMS currently is priced at about 20 paisa on the higher side. Smallest, let's say you send one SMS in a month and they'll charge you 20 paisa. If you, let's say you get like 1 million SMSs, it might come down to as low as like a reliable service will probably charge you about 15 paisa at least.
Okay. So maybe I have seen someone with maybe huge volume. Maybe they were servicing for the banks or whatever.
Yeah. Now with
who
volume,
has millions and millions of SMS every day or WhatsApp every day.
WhatsApp is fixed. There's no variance in terms of how many you do.
Okay.
WhatsApp from Meta itself comes at that price. SMS is again through our telecom regulators. There's pricing variations. So I think it goes as low as. So I've seen people who've come in and like try to sell it towards different vendors, maybe at 11 paisa, 12 paisa.
So each of your transaction is like 2 messages at least. One during
With
pickup.
WhatsApp, we have a lot more. It's a lot more interactive.
Yes.
When it comes to SMS, we can't do a lot because it's restrictive. 120 characters, 140 character limits and all of that.
When do you send a SMS?
Only when WhatsApp is not available.
And you know that WhatsApp is not available upfront?
With API integrations, we're able to pick that up.
Oh, and what's the percentage of users you see who have
SMS?
WhatsApp and
2-3% in India?
And that
only 2-3% don't have WhatsApp?
No, it would be maybe like no network and then WhatsApp se switch.
No,
kiya.
WhatsApp has a queuing mechanism. We queue it and we send it if it's identified as WhatsApp.
Because one of the service where I had used it, something similar to Valetdesk, they were always in a no network zone. One of the restaurant which we spoke about earlier, they don't have a good network in that specific parking zone.
Okay.
So it's always like either offline QR, they give us the QR code or something, or else it's through SMS because there's no network.
So if for WhatsApp to get delivered, you don't need 4G or 5G.
Even 2G.
I mean, it's in a complete dead network.
Then even SMS wouldn't come through.
So
if your SMS
you
is
just register. He says that you just take this key. What does he do? Give us. He
Like
gives
a
us some tag or something.
Right, yeah.
And says like I'll register it for you later, and you'll get a message, and we get a message later on.
Okay.
So maybe they have some fallback mechanism.
Okay.
So something like a RFID tag or something?
No, उतना एडवांस नहीं है ये तो और बेसिक जा रहा है.
It has to come through if they're able to send you SMS, that's enough for WhatsApp to deliver. So WhatsApp has a mechanism where it will notify you, saying that hey, we've picked up that as a message, but this message is too heavy for the network that you're able to deliver. So he'll give you that warning text. You'll get a notification saying that. So let's say Valetdesk is trying to send it. Valetdesk is trying to send you something. The moment you're in a good network zone, you'll get updated.
So how many cars are you doing right now?
We do about 1,500. Peak is about 1,500 a day.
1,500 a day, 1,500 up and again delivering it back.
Correct.
So monthly around 50,000 roughly.
So, yeah. So peak goes up to that. We started doing that in November. We started with 400 when the year started in a month. The first month we did 400 cars. It was all like,
So your eyes are all on big malls and restaurants, shop. shopping complexes?
Definitely those. I think hotels is big hotel chains is what we're trying to focus on. We're looking at enterprise because that's the easiest to sort of. It takes time, but like in terms of growth, that adds volumes quite easily. So that's what we were focused on right now. So we have about in Hyderabad alone we do about 30 locations now.
Okay.
Everywhere there is Valet basically, right?
What are the kind of issues you come across?
Oh my god, this is a lot. Where do I even begin?
Give me the
This
most
was-
common issue or
So
the most interesting.
one of the first ones, right, chronologically was acceptance. People never understood what this is. Like the moment so our mechanism's a little different from our competitors. We don't want to put anything in the consumer's hand. Again, I want the consumer's experience. You're going to a restaurant, your job is not to worry about a Valet ticket or something that you're picking up, right? So we want to integrate it into their dining experience. So the idea is that you come in, you scan a QR, you're checked in. With that, we want to deliver the menu, everything's in front of you that is needed for that evening for you. So that's the sort of suite that we are working to put together. Now it can be, now that experience changes, right? You go to a mall. You might need a map to navigate the mall. So those are things that the business can customize and schedule within that.
It's a value add for them.
Yes. So they're able to deliver, the map of the mall, saying, hey, like this, you're checked in, welcome to this place. Great, your car is going to be parked. Don't worry about it. Focus on this. You have this. The moment the car is parked, it's just a quick update in between that. So that's the sort of experience elevation that we want to do. Now, when we are trying to do this, initially acceptance was the biggest problem. Now we didn't have all of these built in right from the get-go, and as we were trying to put it in front of people, the first point of resistance comes from the main users. I wouldn't say the benefactor. I would say the user is the
Valet.
Exactly. They are blue collar guys. Again, we came back to dealing with change management, right? Something that, again, I picked up when I was working with Deloitte. How do you deal with people resistant to change? How do you give them value add? How do you show them that doing something different is not bad, right? They used to come back to us, great, it's not bad, but what is the benefit for me out of this? Why should I do something different? Right now, we've had certain mechanisms put into the app that it was simple to use, number one. They only have one button throughout, right? That button does different things depending on where it is being clicked.
Okay.
So the system in itself is very complex, but the user experience is very simple. So the way that app is built is that like on a certain page, there is one button that says go or proceed. That proceed checks a car in. That same proceed updates the location of the car later when it's being parked. The same button updates.
What do you mean by
status.
location of the car?
Where it's parked.
So
Whenever
the pillar number or something like that, or
Yeah, with a quick picture, the same buttons clicked.
so the valet takes the picture and then associates that with.
Yes. So the guest has the option to go pick up the car themselves. You don't have to worry about it. They give you navigation, with a link within WhatsApp, saying that like, hey, let's say sometimes, when you go to a restaurant, let's say road number 10, most times. So these are, again, everything came back from my own experience where, I was visiting a restaurant on one side of the street, this guy parked the car on the other side. I was supposed to go the other direction, but if he had to like take a U-turn that was like half a kilometer down to bring it here, and I have to go half a kilometer down to go back the same direction. So it's easier for me to just go across the street. So there was a lot of times that I used to just go ahead and ask him like, just give me the keys, buddy. I'll just go get
So
my car.
there you don't have pillar numbers, right? If it's parked in some.
So whenever they park the car,
space.
they take a picture. It takes a geopin of that location automatically.
The location is shared.
So on that screen, I can just hit get directions. I have a picture of the car as to the general area where it is parked, and I'm within 10 meters of the car.
And what are the operational issues you have seen, like some bizarre challenges or?
So there's different
for
requirements.
example, car theft. Does it even happen or?
It does. So they end up. It's not theft per se, right? There's It started off with the reason we started introducing these key handling mechanisms, right? Initially, we've asked them to just put stickers and write identifications on the keys. Then we introduced these key QR-based key tags that are basically scanned by the customer and the driver to associate it to a specific transaction, and they are bound to the keys itself. Now, the reason we introduced that was two reasons. One is not delivering that car to the wrong person, which is, we have like a secure OTP mechanism wherein a customer is delivered whenever they request the car. We deliver a secure one-time OTP to that. We call it a Valet pin. Now that is unique to every transaction. Not to a user, but to a transaction. You check in your car 5 times a day, 5 times you get a different transaction code for that specific transaction. Now only you are able to, unless you hand it over to somebody else, they're not going to have access to it, and it's delivered to the phone number that's checked in.
That's something which I didn't find with your competitors.
Yes.
Because this seems like the airport experience where you just go and pick up anyone's bag and go carry it to your home, and I'm always confused कि इतना सिक्योरिटी के बाद कोई किसी का बैग लेके जा सकता है, कोई नहीं पूछता है. So you land at an airport, I'm hoping no one does that. Just saying, you can just go and carry 4 bags of your choice, whichever looks cool, like swaggy. सारे उठाओ, सामने driver है.
You don't even have to go in with a bag. You can pick up 4 bags and come. Nobody
go with a few coolies.
बाद में लगेगा फटका.
कहाँ लगेगा?
There'll be CCTV cameras.
सर मास्क पहन लो. आज की दुनिया में ना यही मैं हमेशा बोलता हूँ, बेसिक सिक्योरिटी के नाम पे जब एयरलाइंस इतना नाटक करते हैं, मैं बोलता हूँ आप लोग इतना. सो माई बैग वॉज वन स्वैप्ड एट द एयरपोर्ट. आई केम फ्रॉम बार्सिलोना एंड माई बैग वॉज कैरिड बाई सम लेडी फ्रॉम सिकंदराबाद. And on the way,
probably by accident, because
it was by accident.
Same and
so I felt मेरा बैग अकेले का नहीं आ रहा, ये मेरे जैसा ही है, मतलब पक्का स्वैप हुआ है. I instantly went to the airline, I think it was Emirates or something. They said privacy, ये वो, fill the form, we'll try to get in touch. मैंने नहीं है, वो कस्टमर अभी यहीं पर होगा, कॉल करो. But at that time they were already on the way. They called and she also drove back. I mean जो भी कैब था वो.
You know what technology I used to prevent that? With a simple red ribbon.
नहीं, see red ribbon I understand, but we also used to have those ribbons and stuff. But eventually अगर वो टूट गया.
See, think about it being like a red eye flight. Everybody's tired. You tie the ribbon on one of the handles. दूसरा handle पकड़ के भी लेके जा सकते हैं. You never know.
During that moment, while you are lifting your bag, suddenly you get a call from your home and you are like, अरे 4 बार मैं call answer नहीं कर पाया. एक बार call उठाते, यहाँ पे ये हो गया है, and you are like, क्या हुआ? You will not see, instead of holding this bag, you will hold this bag and you will go away. पीछे से आदमी चलेगा, मेरा बैग है भाई, किसका लेके जा. Like people take others' wives and hold and go away.
So you were saying theft or
yeah, so they usually tend to deliver peak rush hours, like there's 10 cars coming in, like 20 people leaving. They usually, customer comes in, मेरा car कहाँ पे, hand over the keys. In that rush, if I go in, I stand there, take advantage of that rush. It's like, हाँ मेरा कार
लेके चले जाओ.
So what are the controls you have in place to avoid?
One is that safety
OTP
pin, and if at all you're handing it off to somebody else, right, the phone itself, like if they don't have the check-in page or anything, we have a mechanism to take a picture of the person to authenticate that OTP also.
But then wouldn't that customer feel bad, like क्योंकि आज के ज़माने में
definitely
ये बहुत बड़ा इश्यू है कि हम इतने हवा में उड़ते हैं. Bigger than that, I can take a picture of the delivery person, but delivery person taking my picture hurts my ego.
Correct.
That's the reality in India.
Definitely.
This is something Swiggy वाले आते हैं पिकअप करने, जो हम लोग Zepto instant, whatever that, Blinkit or instant. We have the right to take their picture when they're picking up something, but if they say हाँ तू मेरा फोटो कैसे लेगा तू?
Definitely, but so this wasn't there originally. This was a requirement from a customer of ours, saying that नहीं हमको ये चाहिए, and I want these drivers like ingrained with the idea that they can't deliver it and they need to be very careful with where or who you're giving these to. So that's one aspect in terms of security, a use case that we had to sort of solve along the way. Another thing was vehicle tracing. Now which driver delivered which car, these are like some of the analytics that come through. There were a lot of times it happens. The system cannot prevent because it's a human error. What they do is they take your keys, you come in, आपका गाड़ी ले लेते हैं, you they've sent you in, be it through our system, be it through paper, be it through a computer system. I have checked you in, you've went inside. I have taken your car, I have parked it, right? And I have to retrieve somebody else's car. So what our system does is it tags, a request. Let's say you're driving to the parking lot. The system knows that this driver is on his way to the parking lot because of the geolocation that we are tracking from his mobile phone. It will assign a new, let's say I want to come back, I want to retrieve my car and I request it. It sends it to that driver saying that, hey, you're on the way. The easiest way to deliver this car is you. So then it gives the task to them. So this is a great value add for these drivers that we try to explain, saying that
वापस नहीं आने
you don't have to come back. So when it notifies them, he can quickly go grab the keys for this next car and come back. But what happens is human error. Your keys, instead of putting it there, he leaves it in this guest's car.
Oh, that has happened?
It has happened. Oh. So they left your keys in my car. I drove off. So in the earlier days, there was no way for him to really pick up where this has gone awry. So we had to build this tagging mechanism and a reporting structure wherein we flag all of these tasks. Whenever my car was delivered, along with this car, this task was done. So we made that change through learning curve. And when this was implemented, we've noticed that this happens more often than you think. This happens at least 3 or 4 times a day.
So when we give a car, not about Valetdesk, most of the general question, when we give a car to any valet service and if the guy hits the car somewhere,
there's pictures. All of our businesses.
Whose responsibility is it?
It usually lies with the business.
Okay.
Because they are the ones who are providing the value add. But it really depends on the agreement between the business itself and the valet operator. So it is either a sort of they cover for the business covers for it and retrieves it from the valet operator, or entirely pushes liability to the valet operator.
I always presumed it's on the customer because we are in India. कोई कुछ blame नहीं लेगा, बोलेगा मुझे क्या मालूम, मैं तो आपको गाड़ी दे रहा हूँ, सर्विस बड़ी बात है.
So we have a mechanism within it where whenever they park a car, they take pictures of all the damages. So the app lets them take these pictures for pre-existing damages, and these are visible to the customer. On our WhatsApp, we give them a link to track or monitor their car. On that page, we show them all these pictures of damages. So you're rest assured that these are the damages at the time of parking, and at the time of delivery, you can verify it.
No, but not on a daily basis. You guys can do this, right? I mean,
do they do it for every car?
They can't do it for every car, right?
They do. It's the time of parking. They have ample time.
But how do you enforce it?
That enforcement is based on the business again. So we do not control the valet at all. We give the business all the mechanisms.
So that's
for
what
safe
my question
There's
in
still a
that
human angle.
I'm saying that these guys would just mess up everything. Like every time I go to a restaurant and I give my car, when the car comes back, my seat alignment is changed, the AC's controls are changed,
Definitely.
the music has everything has changed within a matter of just 1 minute. He just picked the car from there to there. यार इतनी देर में मैंने 10 साल में गाड़ी का कोई change नहीं किया है. I have that OCD कि everything has to be like this. And within 1 minute, everything is gone up.
Some people, so these are mechanisms that usually whenever we give it to our valet operators, right, our partner operators, usually tend to train them on certain etiquettes. These drivers are, again, they're blue collar people. It's very difficult for them to really grasp certain protocols.
क्यों करना है?
I'm like, why do I do this? But then when if you take some time out and put some effort in to train these guys, you can groom them and you can filter some of these people out. Now it really comes down to what the business wants, because quality comes at cost. So
do you give trainings to the drivers?
Yes, we do. For our partner operators.
So what about loss of key?
So
misplaced keys.
It can be recovered. If it is entirely misplaced, then our system just gives them a mechanism to trace how the misplace might have happened. So
through the tasks.
Correct. Okay. We cannot completely prevent it. It's not.
What about find my key kind of? Have you given any thought, or it's
too
just
expensive? It's too expensive at this stage. That is ideally what we'd want to do, wherein NFC or something like that. But it's just too expensive for the business to invest in something like that at this stage. NFCs will get cheaper over time. I think they're at like 500 rupees for a card now. You know, they're gonna come down. They're gonna get smaller. They're at a business card level right now. They'll come down to somewhere.
Or beacons like iPhone. I think Apple has.
But then again, it comes down to you start tracking the user for it.
No, only the Valets, because they attach it to the key. Anyway, I think we are getting into solutioning for a hypothetical problem, but
which might not even be happening.
So,
but yeah, it was quite interesting to know about your journey. And what were your most tough moments, like when you felt like I should have continued my job? Job hi acha tha. Pay to paycheck better tha.
The way I look at it, right, is the more I don't know if it's me or if, like, you know, life sort of put me in this place, but the more challenging the problem, the more drawn to you know, the experience I will be. If it is going really well, I start looking for, you know, what problem do I solve. That's sort of like why I picked consulting as a field. It's sort of it's like an addiction for me to constantly be surrounded by it.
So you're in search of problems, is what you're saying.
It's generally how it tends to be.
But challenge के साथ अगर stress है तो, so may not be a tech problem, but
my mechanism to handle stress, I try to handle it rather than avoid it, right? There's no way to avoid stress when you're, you know, trying to, you know, do something different, or, you know, there's going to be problems every day. I usually tend to, you know, take a break from that specific problem, for a couple of days at least, you know, go outside of it to something else, and then, you know, bring in my fresh set of eyes. You know, I reset. That sort of helps, deal with it. But otherwise, you know, stepping outside of work, I tend to disconnect. I'm out of it. You know, if I'm working 14 hours a day, I'm 14 hours a day. I'm there. You know, I'm dealing with all of that stress in the 14 hours. But like when I'm out of it, I tend to, you know, disconnect entirely, which helps me bring that new perspective back the next day. So, you know, obviously I have a great team that, you know, that's working with me. About 15, 16 people in this office. 10 in the office, 5 remote.
Okay.
You know, we are hybrid now with COVID learnings. But great team to work with. Really supportive, you know, guys who, you know, be it like the product team or like, you know, the sales and ops guys. Everybody's there. We've had like a lot of people come, you know, go in and out. Been doing this for a year and a half now, right? A little more than a year and a half, and a lot of people came and went through this time. And the guys who've really stuck believe in, you know, that we're trying to do something different, and like there's a core problem that we're trying to solve, and our, you know, sort of ideologies and visions aligned. It's really difficult to find a team that really aligns with what you're trying to do, because, you know, finding somebody to do, you know, a task you give them is easy. That's the easy bit of, like, you know,
them owning the problem is the difficulty.
That's the challenge. And like if they are on the, you know, problem solving job along with you, it makes it easy for me to, you know, really deliver whatever I am trying to deliver. So
what does scaling look like?
For
scaling
us,
your business,
you know, it's about growing the number of vehicles that are being processed. At the end of the day, our job is to, you know, be getting a map of, you know, the parking landscape. The 5-year, 10-year plan is to really get a full map of the parking landscape. Now, we're already doing some research and R&D into building smart parking systems, wherein, you know, we are getting into, you know, systems and, you know, mechanisms for parking, which are tandem parkings is what they're called, wherein you have like a big grid of like multi-tier parking structures where like cars are like revolved through robots, right? That's not, in pictures and in films. It's there in the market now. It's just that it's a little more expensive than traditional parking. So we've got to a point where stacked parking is very affordable now. So in the next 4 to 5 years, that's the next
That
thing.
will only happen in cities like Mumbai where there is real estate limit. In cities like all other cities, we are just expanding every side.
Yeah.
So we don't really have a parking issue as such. Like if you talk about Surf City Mall,
Yeah.
instead of that's one of the only places where we have parking problems. They would end up buying a building next to them and just use it for multi-level parking instead of going for a sophisticated.
So if at some point they're going to run out of space. Every city is going to run out of space. If throwing quantities at the problem is not a sustainable solution. We've seen something like this happen in US time and time again. Dallas is a prime example. Their approach was that they have a lot of land area. They kept expanding. To put a small let's say a Costco, right? You go to a Costco, you will never find shortage of parking the way they do it, but that they built that space in like 40-50 acres. Now at some point land is going to get expensive. How do you cut down on these costs? These are revenue leaks for businesses, and businesses realize it now. Walmart's biggest expense is land acquisition. The reason why their storages go up in tiers and not more racks is because space is a problem. Acquiring that much land is a problem. Amazon's investing in multi-tier robotic retrieval systems. They could have gone with open floor shelves, but they don't. They do stackable systems because it's the easiest way to do things.
Makes sense. So in the future, we would be looking at more congestion is what
Definitely.
you're saying. And that's where you are feeling that our solution is the right solution.
We are not buying fewer cars by the day, we're buying more.
More and more.
The proportion to number of users to cars is decreasing, and it's getting inverse.
True.
We have more cars per user in densely populated areas on average.
True.
So there is something called PSU, a unit for how many people you can really assume per automobile, right? For car, ideally it should be 4. It's 1.2.
They always travel alone.
So for bike, it needs to be 2. It's 1. For two-wheelers, I mean. For buses, like something that's a 35-seater, the standard assumed is 12 or 13.
Oh.
So there's fewer people per automotive. So these are some of the things.
So it's not utilized well.
Yes.
So back to your ride-sharing idea at some point.
So that sort of fits in. The idea was that like eventually all of these sort of comes in. Like you put your public transport systems, you have your metros. Metros don't solve your last mile problem, right? Any public transport does not solve the last mile problem. So there needs to be something that connects the last mile, and that has to be scalable, and it has to be a large volume automotive mechanism. Ride sharing is one way, but then it completely takes the dependence off of public transport. Now somebody has to travel from Madechal to here in his own vehicle for ride sharing to work. But now if you're building a public transport, now your problem is getting him to the first stop and getting him off the last stop.
We have autos for that.
Which again bring it to the same problem of congestion on streets because the vehicles don't really fit in. So if you're bringing in large volume vehicles or even things like Rapidos and all, doesn't.
But they
really
also
solve.
don't solve to all the demographics also.
Exactly.
They are filling in.
तुम बैठोगे Rapido में.
That's what I'm saying. It might not fill in.
Yeah.
So
It's not
there
a
are
100%
solutions.
solution. Yeah. I agree that it's like far more accepted now than maybe 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll change for their ecosystem, but the way the number of companies or new startups that are evolving within that ecosystem has dropped drastically, which kind of shows that the market's shrinking.
In
or
fact, those
demand.
companies are also pivoting into their own coffee shop businesses itself.
Something
Altogether, they
yeah.
are changing. Second thing is
Major
air pollution. I don't want to now go into again open spaces, risk of accidents, more congestion. So ultimately, more problems are coming in.
Correct.
We just need to find interesting solutions. And on that note, interesting that you've came through this idea of valet business. You found out a way to make money out of someone's parking problems, and that's a way to go.
Yeah.
So eventually you couldn't safeguard others' gold, but उनकी गाड़ियाँ संभाल लेते.
We did safeguard it, but not for too long.
Not for too long. But interesting, Prithvi, it was interesting talking to you, and it was fun trying to understand what you do, what you have been through, and wishing you all the best on the
Thank you so much.
future. I saw you had got a seed round and an angel round, and I'm sure you're looking forward to more rounds. So,
Yeah.
Actually, you should not be looking forward to more rounds.
My goal, we've delayed it all this while. We've delayed our next round all this while because I'm a businessman. The goal is not to go the startup route where you keep raising money and burning money. We want to be profitable as early as possible. So we're putting together a product that is that is good, that is sellable, and if we wouldn't have achieved the product market fit like early in the first few months, we probably would have been out of it.
Okay.
Very early, we would have cut our losses, but we've seen that the demand is there. We've seen the product market fit come through, so we want to be able to
no, I thought it was more of a yearly transition. So April 2023 you had a round, then April 2024 you had next round. So I'm like 2025 April 25th you would have the next round.
So we brought in like strategic partners. So the people that I've worked with who do all of these urban planning, so they are the ones who backed us initially to get us through to product market fit. So they were like core support in terms of strategy development and business plan development.
I tried to research about them. I thought, why are these interior guys investing? I was like, okay, mujhe kya?
So they're like, so
I did.
Yeah, so they're basically some of the biggest urban planning people. They were involved in designing the T-Hub. So they've done.
So you work in and around T-Hub?
Our office? Yeah. Our office is we're not in T-Hub. We're in High Tech City, the other side on the main road.
Okay.
We work out of a co-working space. We started off with one of our investors' office. Then now we have a.
Is it VHub or?
No, it's called Valetdesk.
Valetdesk. I've never heard about it.
Yeah, so
that's also a flavor of ride sharing and sharing of
space sharing.
Yeah, space sharing. So yeah.
Anyway, Prithvi, it was fun talking to you, and
good luck, Prithvi.
Thank you guys.
Thanks for coming.
So much. Thank you.
It was nice talking to you.
अगर आपको ये पॉडकास्ट पसंद आया है तो लाइक करना ना भूलें और टफ स्टोरी को यूट्यूब और सारे सोशल मीडिया प्लेटफॉर्म्स पर फटाफट से फॉलो और सब्सक्राइब भी कर दीजिए. ऐसी इंटरेस्टिंग और इंस्पायरिंग कंटेंट के लिए मिलते हैं हम आपसे हमारे अगले एपिसोड में. तब तक के लिए गुड बाय.